Game begin.
Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Spy Colony podcast. I am here with the one true strategist, Michael J. Flores.
Oh, that's a very generous name that you've given me. I don't imagine that the podcast will get any better from there, so I guess we'll make it a short one this
week. You are here with the meetup champion, Lanny Huang, your co-host.
Oh, you had to ruin it, didn't you? You had to ruin it.
I feel like one true strategist is more evergreen than meetup champion.
Yeah,
So
well, all I care about in life is playing pre-modern, and as a subset of that, metagaming and beating you in pre-modern meetups, and I failed this week. I failed miserably. And you gave me the layup too. You're like, here's a layup, and I didn't take it.
I did. I sort of intentionally. So background on what happened today. We just had our little 4-rounder hosted at the Brooklyn Strategist. Mike was going to bring Burn. I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it, but my wife got called into work that night. So I was like, okay, let's roll up. And Mike was like, what are you playing? I need to play something that beats what you're playing. I'm like, I'll play a deck that loses to Burn. Don't worry about it. So I played Grotog and was rewarded with a Flores buy by showing up
that's
late.
Some BS. I lobbied for you to get the 0-1.
So caught the buy for showing up late. Then got the Flores pairing. Won the roll because
I knocked over a chair.
Flores in his grand clumsiness on his way over to the match table knocked over a stainless steel chair, and I was like, well, that just means I'm on the play.
Can't argue with the rules.
We rolled the dice and the dice agreed with me.
So Lanny had first turn Kyrian. He's going to play first turn Kyrian against me. It's obvious he has a daze, right? So I play Mog Fanatic, he dazes. I have a lightning bolt. So I'm like, all right, I probably still win the game if he has anything but Chris Pakula here. So obviously he has Chris Pakula. Grows the guy to 3. Names lightning bolt. So I have to take a turn off to play Grim Lavamancer. Kill Chris Pakula, but at that point it's too late. He can protect the Kyrian 2 different ways. And I still could have won, but I only drew 1 other burn spell the rest of the game, not counting the 3 fire blasts in my. So I drew as many fire blasts as I drew mountains, so I couldn't deploy them.
Yeah,
I think you were pretty low at the end of the game, but not low enough.
Yeah, I was like in range, but I had the best way to beat a burn opponent is with like a 5/5, and I was playing really tentatively because even with the 6/6 Dryad, I can like if I attack and you just like block with Grim and then bolt the Dryad, that's 6 damage. And it's just like trading 2 cards for 1.
Yeah, but
like
I just never had operating mana, right? So the problem was like I only had 1 turn the entire game where I could have bolted and grimmed the Dryad in the same turn, and that was a turn you cast Opt. Yeah. So I was literally I'm like, okay, if I try to do this, you just counterspell and I knew you had a counterspell. I don't remember how I knew, but yeah, I knew you had one. And oh no, I must have bobbled you, right?
Something like that.
So you had the counterspell on the table. So if I just make the play, then you just counterspell. You grow the Dryad either way, but the lightning bolt doesn't resolve. So that was literally my only window. So I literally have to burn you to the face, which is what I tried to do. But just
you almost got away with it.
It's the only game where you don't want 3 fire blasts, right? I guess 2 fire blasts and 4 mountains would have been much better than
2 fire blasts.
3 fire blasts and 3 mountains.
But and then after sideboarding you won game 2, in the normal way, you just had Curse Scroll. That's all it took.
I did not realize. I think I'm gonna brainstorm this with Caffeinated. I think that maybe we should just sideboard Curse Scroll in the burn deck. There's so many matchups where it's just the trump card. Like you can't really beat. You have to beat Curse Scroll with mana denial.
I have Curse Scroll and Lanny Burn.
You had 4?
No, I've got 2 main, 1 side. I just have a different, like, I don't know. I just have a different idea of like what the burn deck should look like. Like am I
not supposed to play my Olarade?
If you
binders as baubles, that's what you're saying to me. I mean, you could say that to me, and then,
yes, that's the answer.
Ruin my concept of pre-modern. I'm reading this book right now called The 50th Law. It's a book by 50 Cent and Mastery, Art of Seduction, 48 Laws of Power author. Robert Greene. I've read a lot of Robert Greene books, and I just went through this chapter where he's just like, boredom is this thing that we're all trying to get rid of boredom ever since our childhood. But really, reality successful people are just so comfortable with boredom and just doing the same things over and over again. And I was just like, oh man, maybe all of my leaks in Magic are just about wanting to feed my dopamine.
Yeah, just
And that what I should really just no variation in any emotional state, execute exactly the same every time.
I do think your leak as a human is emotion. like all humans.
Yeah, but I mean, Chapin used to get after me. He's just like, you get madder than anyone else ever met, and then I just go on the warpath.
Which is impressive considering there's some very salty Magic players out there.
Oh, but I'm not like a salty Magic player in general. I don't care about like losing a game of Magic that was well played by my opponent, or right, like my opponent played to their outs and then they drew their out. I might complain, but I don't get mad about that really. Like mad's the wrong word. So people just start insulting you when you play properly against them. Like you and Tom playing the properly built burn deck. How many people just swear at you when you just beat them by playing good cards instead of Skullcrack or whatever, And then, but like I'm not like that. But I don't know if you say like illogical stuff and don't back it up, and I don't know, and then I get super, or like I don't know, I feel like you betrayed me.
I agree.
I feel like I hate betrayal. I hate betrayal. I hate hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, man. I can't stand hypocrisy. It kills me every time.
I mean, I guess this is going to be just a classic Spike Colony tangent, but I think that one of the keys to accepting hypocrisy is having empathy for the hypocrite and understanding that they're not hypocritical to themselves. Like their algorithm,
sure they are.
Their algorithm allows for them to view themselves differently than how they view others, and it just happens to all of us because we don't.
When
think
Lindsey Graham shot down Merrick Garland, or when Mitt Romney was just like, I'm gonna take these things under consideration, and then they make whatever, like Mitt Romney's position paper that he commissioned right before they confirmed Amy Comey Bryant it is so disgusting to me, right? Like it's fine, you just exercise power because you're in power. But like both of those guys were just like, oh no, we would do the right thing. This is the right thing, so we're gonna do the right thing.
Yeah.
Positions are reversed, and instead they just shit all over their own. Statements.
When it comes to just believing in something, and this just like I don't know, it kind of ties into what we said a few podcasts ago when I was just like, people just like don't know the reason they do things. They just explain what they do in a way that makes sense to themselves like if they're asked, right? So like that's my whole point about hypocrisy, which is just like, you'll have somebody and they'll just be like, oh, I think, they present a heuristic. They're just like, oh, this is what you should do in this situation. But that's not like how your mind works. You don't like encounter a situation and then consult your morals and then go do a thing. Like you just do the thing, and then afterwards you look at it and you're like, well, I'm a moral, normal functioning person, and so thus whatever I did just like makes sense. And you can just explain away anything. You just be like, oh, somebody comes to you and there's like, that doesn't make sense. You're
a couple of years ago about just like empathizing with conservatives or empathizing with Republicans, and it's a really interesting premise to the book. And because the underlying premise is like anybody who's educated, lives on the coasts, whatever, liberal, forward,
coastal liberal bubble people,
whatever.
Like to call ourselves.
They just assume that everybody who's conservative is a moron. Either they assume they're a moron, or they assume that they're just like acting in bad faith, which I think is really easy to assume if you just watch their behavior relative to the things that they claim to believe or the things that they say. So I read this book and I was just like, oh wow, this is really interesting. One of the things that came out of it is like nobody was like a coastal liberal elite. Like if you look at like the preponderance of humanity, it's like 1% of the billions of people who have ever lived like would fall into this. And like most people think that like what we imagine as being sort of a progressive intellect driven philosophy is just so in the minority of all humans to ever live, including most of the humans who live elsewhere today, right? Is that was one thing. It was kind of stunning. It doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Like more people will live this way, as either civilization will progress or it won't, right? If civilization blows up, then this is just going to be how many coastal elites there ever are. But that's one thing. But the other thing that I thought that was the bigger takeaway for me was just most of us, I think, who wherever you like stand on any kind of a spectrum, are just like, oh well, I reason through this thing and I come to my conclusions based on my reason, facts, logic, etc. Where in fact we just basically all just do or think whatever our emotions tell us to, and then we use our reason to justify.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's you're just saying exactly what I just said.
Well,
that's what I mean.
Here's the thing: I'm a little sick, and so I might be a little off today. In my opinion, the listeners are lucky to have me. I mean, they're lucky to have me any week, but they're particularly
we could have called in a
ringer this week because
see if BK's free.
I was supposed to play Legacy today, the Legacy 2K at
Bifrost. You didn't invite me? You were going to go without me?
Well, what happened? I didn't even know there was a Legacy 2K. Mengu posted a tweet last night, and Roland's got a deck for him, and Mengu 3-0. So I'm like, oh, shoot, is Mengu here? I knew Mengu was in town, right? But I worked all week, right? And I'm like, oh, is Mengu going to be there? I don't think I've ever hung out with him in real life, only on the internet. And turns out there's a 2K. So Roland's just like, whatever, I'll hook you up with a deck. So he's building me a deck. I just texted him last night. I'm like, listen to me, right? I'm like sick. I can't like just infect. I can't be patient zero for a room full of Magic players. It's just not right. And he's just like, I don't care. I'm like, I don't want to cough all over your cards. He's like, I don't care. Just come. Like, I'm trying to do the right thing. So, Roland was going to hook me up, and champ, Roland Chang. Shout out to Roland Chang. Roland is, I don't know what, Roland is the demographic and psychographic kind of person who maybe you would imagine that he was a Ravenclaw, or maybe he's a competitive tennis player even at his age, so maybe you imagine he's a Hufflepuff, but I think he might actually be a Gryffindor. He is going to go all in on Magic the Gathering, and I can't wait to see how it goes. So shout out to Roland. He was going to loan me a Legacy deck, but I told him thanks, but not this time.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would have done if I if I was going to compete in Legacy. So the problem is, if we both showed up, we might just have drained Roland of all his loaners.
There was enough decks. I could have played either like a 96 card mono white Yorion deck it's mono white with Orcish Bowmasters. That's one of them. I could have played that, or I could have played Naya with like Splashing Dark decks combo. So he's just like explaining the cards to me, like, oh, this is just like the deck I designed to win the 2009 World Championships, but also as an insta-kill. Cool. This is super on brand for me. So that was what I was going to play. And then I said, I'll play the Yorion deck. He's like, but it's all in Japanese. Of course.
You're like...
Right? So I have to look up all these like...
you just like draw your opening hand and you just like call a judge for a Scryfall ruling in your own deck. Yeah.
Is this a land? So anyway... he's like, it's probably better off if you play the Naya deck. At least you know what a Knight of the Reliquary does.
Yeah.
So
do you know what a Knight of the Reliquary does?
Yeah, man.
There's a lot of text on that.
Yeah, it's just taps, sacks a land, gets a land.
What kind of land?
Whatever land you want, brother.
No, what kind of land do you sacrifice?
What
land do you sacrifice?
I don't know. I read the card before I do it. And if it was in Japanese, I'd look on the Gatherer app. I'd figure it out. I don't know. Do you know? Okay, here's the thing. I wrote this Turner report this week about elves, right? He's like, oh, this is a good resource. This is an evergreen resource. And Cam Fulton, who I had played in that meetup, was just like, Woodripper still doesn't destroy Oath of Druids, Mike. And I'm like, and I knew it didn't destroy Oath of Druids because Cam told me at night. And I still wrote it in my article.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's embarrassing. I guess I must have been sick the whole week.
Yeah, we all roasted you for that.
I deserve it.
You deserve
it. It's hard to get everything right when you're doing like 2 articles a week for 30 years. Can't get everything right every time.
I mean, it's what editors are for, right? I mean,
look,
not to throw anybody at CSI under the bus. There's a lot of cards in your articles these days that they probably never heard of.
Yeah, so it is what editors are for, but at the same time, you can't expect the editors to know. Like, was the average editor editing a Magic the Gathering site born when Woodripper was printed?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, that card was printed in like
Nemesis.
1997. Yep. I don't know what the hell year it was. 2000, right?
Yeah.
You could be like a fully grown, you know,
Zoomer.
early part of your career and not have been born yet when that card was printed.
All right, let's bring the focus back to Burn. You want to run more curse scroll.
I'm thinking about it, but the sideboard is so tight.
What? The sideboard's not tight. Just cut the artifact removal. Fuck it.
Okay, so
just cut anything that destroys an artifact. Who cares?
Speaking of fuck it,
name
of the deck is Fuck It We Ball.
Yeah,
that's why I played it. So I was gonna do a coin flip, right? So this has nothing to do with Mengu being in town, but Mengu had played Elves last week in the Italian National Championship, and he played this like no anger, no Kamal deck, right? And I looked at his deck, and he finished one match out of the top 8, right? And so my assumption was, because Mengu's not like, he's not a pre-modern main like we are, right? My assumption was he just didn't know how the deck worked. So I was like, oh, this is cute. He just doesn't know the Kamal routines, right? You know, when I top forward bearded $1,000 tournament last year, I didn't know how the Kamal routines worked. But I just deployed to deranged tournaments, and they got me there a lot of the time, right? Without actually knowing how my deck worked. So I just assumed Mythic Champion Andrea Mengucci, professional Magic streamer, Mythic Champion Andrea Mengucci just didn't know how the deck worked. That was my assumption. So I'm talking to him. He's like, I actually know how the deck worked. Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, well, you could never beat goblins. He's like, actually, I mostly tested against goblins. And I'm like, what? You mostly tested against goblins, and then you decided to play elves. And he's like, yeah, I beat goblins twice
in
the Italian Nationals. This dude clearly knows something I don't know. At this point,
that's where I would have started. I would have just been like, I think Andrea Mengucci knows how to play Magic.
So I'm like, oh shoot. He's like, yeah, I 2-1 against goblins. They got me one of them. And the other one, he lost to Stifle Knot, like second turn combo with double Force of Will backup.
Yeah, and his biggest regret was running fetch lands.
Yeah, that's the other thing. He's just like, so he had Sylvan Library, which was what Fran's been talking about, right? He's just like, cut the Sylvan Library, just play either a 3rd Ingasticor or a 4th Deranged Tournament, no fetch lands. So I'm like, this deck is basically mono green the Rock. It's like not a combo deck. It's just like survival for deranged tournament deck.
Yeah,
love it. I am now in love with this deck, right? So I'm like, I'm gonna play this deck, but then somebody somewhere, is probably you, just said the words "fuck it, we ball" somewhere that I read them, and I'm like, "Fuck it, we ball," because I bought those. You know, I'm putting in air quotes these special ball lightnings. You know, whatever commemorative print foil old border ball lightnings. I'm like, I never put them in a sleeve. And you had gifted me a set of 4 and black border lightning bolts that have never been in a deck pick, right? So I'm just like, oh man, this is just, everything's coming together. This is going to be a beautiful deck pick. So that's why I played it, not realizing the level of plot armor. Like, it's just like I'm taking the One Ring into combat against, the forces of Mordor. I'm like, oh, listen to this, Gondorians. I found this really powerful magic item. I bet it will help us to defeat the forces of Mordor. Look at that giant glowing eye. I'm going to run up and chase into him with this magic ring. Let's see what happens. Well, we saw what happened, didn't we? I drew one of those lightning bolts, and you had Chris Pakula with Counterspell, Daze, and Opt. That lightning, and then no lightning bolts showed up the rest of the match, as far as I can remember.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I cannot be stopped when I play one of the worst decks in pre-mod.
And you played
one of the
your
least
matchups
playable.
were 2 red deck wins and a goblins.
Yeah. Goblins. Let's see what could have happened differently in the goblins matchup. I really don't dislike, because you just kind of get Psychotog in play.
The only thing that could have happened was that your mom called in sick that day, the day that she was supposed to dip you in the river Styx, holding you by the ankle. That's the only thing that could happen. You'd be like, oh, Lanny, I've got a cough. We'll do the river Styx dipping another day.
Yeah. Well,
the only thing that could have happened.
I was only 15 minutes late, so for what it's worth, if there were 10 players, I would have just gotten a game loss and had an opponent waiting for me at 6:45, because I showed up at 6:45. The tournament fired at 6:30. So
I've had all variations.
Flores by
Flores win. I've had the Flores loss. I've had the Flores game loss. I've had the Flores. Jeff, don't start the tournament yet. I'm holding 3 people's decks.
Yeah,
I've had that.
that's a good one.
But I've had all manner of them. But you know, I think at the Strat, I've only ever had the Flores buy. I think I've had the Flores buy twice because I think I've won at Strat.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is embarrassing. I live 10 minutes walk from the Strat.
That is true. That is true. But you know, working late all the time. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I still wanted to say about the burn deck. Here's my radical philosophies. Radical philosophy number 1. Okay, I'm gonna go from least radical to most radical. Radical philosophy number 1: 4 copies of Ball Lightning.
Main deck.
Yeah.
Fuck it, we ball.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, your opponent has to respect you at all times. Like, which means you just steal tempo from them. And then, like, it's almost like, I don't know, like sandbagging a Ball Lightning is just like having a daze, you know? Your opponent is just playing one turn slower for the rest of the game. Like, they're never going to tap out on their turn, right?
Well, how many lands do you play in Lanny Burn?
I am thinking I'll play. So I had 22 in the last list that I drew up, 22 and 3 rings.
God, 22.
And the reason was, like, I don't know, this deck can draw 4 mountains and sacrifice them all at the end of the game. And so it's just kind of like, I don't know, it seems like not that big of a deal if you have 19 mountains and 3 barbarian rings. So I might go down.
When you say 19 mountains, you mean 11 mountains.
Yeah, 19 plus 11 plus 8.
Yeah.
For fetches. But yeah, okay. So you're like, oh, Ball Lightning is 3 mana. It's just like, okay, well, name cards that cost 2 and 1 mana that I'm not already playing that I want in my deck. I'll wait.
I mean, the cards that you're not going to play, or you're going to have some shaving on, are going to be some combination of Volcanic Hammer, I'm guessing 0.
Right.
Lava Dart, I'm guessing 0 main deck.
0 to 1.
Yeah. Shock and Seal of Fire, which are every single one of those cards is marginal.
Yeah, exactly. And then, or you can, you know, gotcha me with your Fire Bolts, which happened to cost 6 mana last time I checked.
Well, you know, when I first started playing, I played 1 copy of Volcanic Hammer in the main, because that's what Caffeinated had in his Easter Champs winning deck.
Yeah, just you know, just for good measure.
He is 9 at the time. He was 19 lands, 2 barbarian rings, 4 Urza's Bauble, 1 Volcanic Hammer, and I think he switched that to 1 Lava Dart more recently, right?
Yeah, I think that makes a little bit more sense, but that's just because, you know, sorceries are horrible. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, okay, well, Ball Lightning's the best card. Now, second hot take is this a second or third hot take? I don't know. Another hot take for Sulfuric Vortex.
Main deck.
Just, yeah. Why not? Why not? How much damage does Sulfuric Vortex do?
1,000 damage.
Yeah, infinite.
But half of it is to you. So,
but who cares?
1,000 damage.
You're always in front, right? Because
well, that the only thing about that is that gives you such a leak to. I mean, if anybody is a lunatic who plays Red White Slide or is it's just very bad against our whole group of friends. All have sideboards that punish people who play Sulfuric Vortex, probably in a way that the global pre-modern community doesn't. But no matter what decks we're playing.
I mean, the main punish is just
land still.
It's just
Oathpauloosh.
It's just copper.
Yeah, that's a big one because we all play.
But that's after sideboard
and search cards.
Just board out.
Like that.
I mean, you board out your Vortex if you're.
Yeah, it's hard. Vortex is the best card if they don't have Cop Red in play, and then it kills you if they do.
Okay, well then, fuck it, we ball. Deck, right?
I agree. Fuck it, we ball.
Yeah.
Just live a little.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, at least it's gonna hold down 1 mana from them for a few turns.
Yeah, well, for 10 turns or less.
Yeah.
It's called 8 turns. Like they might get in with
okay, so I mean the reason why I like it is just like it's good. It plays well on Philosophy of Fire units because 1, you're always gonna have a higher life total because, you know, if your opponent has creatures, they're not getting in with them, and if your opponent doesn't have creatures, then they're not dealing damage to you. So Vortex lands. I I mean, it's bad against precisely Ray of Revelation. I mean, obviously, Disenchant, Naturalize, Seal of
Not
Cleansing.
a soul is going to have the card Ray of Revelation against you.
Except for me.
Oathpauloosh is not bringing that in.
I'm not bringing it in, but I play main deck. We're talking about game one. We're in game one, right?
Oh.
Because we're playing 4 Vortex, and you're just like main deck. And I'm just like, yeah, main deck.
Well, I want to be a 4 Vortex, 4 Pop player.
Yeah.
Right? So
Four pops
Caffeinated
on the board.
was just like, oh, you can't play that many now. And I mean, no offense to Caffeinated, right? He is the granddaddy of Urza's Bauble. But, you know, when Caffeinated lost in the finals to Tom, half of the reason is because he didn't have the cards that he invented to beat Tom.
Yeah.
Just didn't have them.
Yeah, this is, of course, in reference to, I don't know, something like the February or January monthly finals, in which Tom Matelski went up against Aaron Dix, Rock versus Burn, and we were like, oh yeah, Burn's got this, you know, with sideboard cards such as Sulfuric Vortex and Price of Progress, Burn's gonna be great. It's like, oh well, it turns out, you know, I think he might have had access to 6. He might have had access as low as 4 between the two. He might have gone 3-3. He might have gone like 2-3 or something. There's probably like 3 Price of Progress, 2 Vortex or something.
Basically, you just draw any combination, any 2 of those cards, you always win sideboard games against the Rock.
Yeah, I mean that's my feeling too, because like the Rock has Spike Feeder and Ravenous Baloth. I mean we play Tempting Worm in our Rock list now, but yeah, I think that, I don't know, 4 Pop, 4 Vortex, and then so the big question is just like, okay, well, oh Lanny, you were playing all these awesome cards, like what's your sideboard look like? Hear me out. No artifact, just yeet those overloads into the sea. Like I don't know, just get rid of them.
So your game plan against 12-12 is to blast half the combo instead of killing the 12-12.
Race, blast, or lose. Those are my 3 options.
I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's
awkward because you have to hold up R for the entire game.
You just have to slow play. Also, like the value of Jackal Pup changes if this is your game plan. Like, you're never going to cut Jackal Pup because a game on the play, if you have a first turn Jackal Pup.
Why were you cutting Jackal Pup?
Some people cut Jackal Pup.
You can't cut
12.
No.
Brother,
no.
I'm not saying I cut Jackal Pup. I'm saying people have done it.
Ugh.
I cut Jackal Pup twice last on Tuesday.
Yeah, because you were playing against Elves and the Mirror.
Oh, I guess I cut it 3 times.
Yeah.
I cut it also against the Rock.
Yeah, there you go. Elves, Mirror, and the Rock.
Yeah, Jackal Pup exiled.
Okay, so I guess my thinking is, okay, so I guess I'll say this. You can run a bunch of blasts. I do get blast is unsavory. Like, if you can't deal with the Dreadnought on the board, then your opponent only has to worry about the turn that they're putting the Dreadnought into play. You have to hold up 1 mana the entire time, so you can't like commit your 2s and 3s.
It's okay.
So it's not ideal.
I wrote an article called Slow Playing the Beatdown, wherein I won a meetup with Mono Red, and it included defeating, I don't remember if I beat 12-12, how many times I beat it, but I beat it, and everyone was telling me how you never beat it. Like, I think I beat Roland playing like regular 12-12 and Kaplan playing 12-12 Hermit combo.
Yeah, right.
And so I count that as beating 12-12s twice, but like I used the same strategies to win both times, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I get, like, I don't know. I mean, they kind of have to, like, I just kind of subscribe to the theory of like beating Dreadnought the same way that you always do, which is just that you like have a clock and then you disrupt just enough. So it's like you can draw 1 or 2 blasts, and then from there to
the
race.
Sentence I just said? This is just opponents that you play at our meetups. Like, Roland is like both a legacy vintage champion. Kaplan has never lost a match in any format, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I mean,
like that's just who you randomly run into at Tau House.
I mean, we don't, we've said it before. We've said that we're
yeah, but I also they were both
dragons.
playing Phyrexian Dreadnoughts against me.
Yeah.
And I was playing poor little Jackal Pup.
But yeah, I don't know. I have 6 blasts. You can have 3 overloads, 3 blasts, or you can just have 4 blasts to
6 blasts is way better against your Psychotogs.
Yeah, it's better against like, okay, if you're entirely invested in like ball lightnings and sulfuric vortexes, you do need those cards to resolve. So having blasts versus the
So
blue decks is like somewhat reasonable.
let's imagine we were writing a sideboard guide for Patreons. How should I have sideboard with the cards I had, right? So I didn't have 6 blasts.
Now, let me pull your deck pickup. Yeah, go ahead.
I sided some nonsense left in Ball Lightning. Your argument would have been take out 4 Ball Lightning for 4 blasts. That's what you
yeah. So
you.
In the Grotog versus Burn matchup, which you don't have to overthink from the Burn side, I would start by cutting every copy of Ball Lightning, simply because if you get a Ball Lightning iced, it's really bad for iced. You. if you get Ball Lightning iced that multiple times,
could have gone either way in my head. Although you were at 18 life on turn 6.
You lost as soon as you got iced, right? So one of the I love this the tension in this matchup, because you have 2 decks that have very unique ways of gaining leverage over the opposing deck. So your deck contains cards like Grim Lavamancer and Curse Scroll. Grim Lavamancer, by your calculation, sort of has no chance of surviving against 4 copies of Fire Ice and 4 copies of Swords of Plowshares. And your thinking was like, well, at least if it bites it against a fire, then that opens up my Ball Lightning for coming in. The only problem is Ball Lightning bites it against every counterspell in my deck. I, of course, keep in some number of dazes. I have Chill coming in. So it trades much more unfavorably with counterspells. And then if I do happen to ice it, the 2-for-1 value is insane, because it's not often like people see Grotog and they're just like, oh, it's a blue deck, it draws a lot of cards. Like, okay, well, it's a blue deck that has just Gush, and then also has to run Mox Diamonds, and it also runs Foil. So the Grotog deck never has 7 cards in hand.
What if I play 5 blasts, a Curse Scroll, and then no overloads? Because like when I played against the Red Mirror, I sided out 2 Sulfuric Vortex and 4 Jackal Pups for 4 Lava Darts and 2 overloads. And overloads, I don't think they're good, but I actually overloaded a Curse Scroll. Curse Scroll is kind of like the leverage point in the mirror match, right? So, Dave taught me this years ago. It's just like, if you play properly, nobody deals any damage to anybody for the first 5 turns. Like literally both turns are 20. Like, so now you hucker in, and it's just like, these are the situations where you do stuff like side an extra land, right? So you can operate in the mid game. Like the cards that end up being, or Lauer helped me with this a lot too. It's just like the cards that end up being really good in the mirror match and sideboard games are the cards that you imagine not being very good at all, right? Like cards like Hammer of Bogardon, or like, because nobody, just forget about the concept of people dealing any damage with their, because they're just not going to deal damage to their creatures, right? So that's one thing. So it ends up being burn accumulation. So card advantage actually starts becoming meaningful. The second thing is, I learned this when testing by myself. I think like in 2004, 2005, nobody knew how to play the red deck mirror and extended as well as I did. I just played against myself. Like, if I said I played against myself 10 hours a week, just that matchup for the entirety of an extended season, that's not only is that not an exaggeration, that's on the low end. So I learned things about, like, you never want to get hit by a blistering Firecat, right?
Yeah, of course.
And a Ball Lightning, blistering Firecat are kind of the equivalences here. Like, you almost always lose if you ever get hit by a blistering Firecat, unless, and then I was just like, okay, then I figured out what the unlesses were. So we do things like, I learned this from Patrick Sullivan. Like, you just cast a Lava Dart on anything as early as possible, which allows you to tap
out at all times. Yeah.
So then if they start sending 6-1s or 7-1s at you, you can just defend yourself, because like the card advantage is next to meaningless. It's getting hit by a 7-power creature one time. You almost always
I mean, that's a form of card advantage. Which is also why we put 6-1s in our deck, is because we don't have card advantage. We just have, Grim Lavamancer, Curse Scroll, and fewer lands than your opponent. I mean, I don't know. I just, like, that's what I just would have sideboarded out balls. I think the rest is fine, right? Just like balls out, blasts in.
Everything's so bad, right? Like I think in game 2, I won game 2 where you were just like, you drew 3 plows and then you 2-for-1 me with like on a Grim Lavamancer and a Mog Fanatic with fire. And I was just like,
you just had Curse Scroll. Yeah.
And I just landed Curse Scroll and I'm like, how could you ever win?
Yeah.
Like, you're just dead.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like, it's literally at that point, it's 2 Psychotogs against my deck, right? So I think if I'm like 3rd Curse Scroll, then I can side in curse. I side in 5, leave in 1 Sulfuric, but Sulfuric Vortex just blows in the mirror match. That sounds great. I think I'll do this. I think I'll stock up on curse scrolls. Even though I only play 2 curse scrolls in any given pre-modern deck right now, I think I just need to own more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the line that I follow on Dreadnought is just kind of like, okay, Dreadnought's the only artifact that you're targeting, meaningfully, that you'd like, you were like, oh, I overloaded curse scroll, that's kind of meaningful in the mirror, but it's just kind of like, okay, well, you overloaded curse scroll, but you can just like replace the overload with a curse scroll, and then you kind of do the same thing.
No, because 2 curse scrolls, you have 1 operating curse scroll. And overloading the curse scrolls, you have a curse scroll and they don't.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, if you're hoping to draw your 2 copies, then it's just kind of, I mean, you're hoping to draw.
But the other thing is, if you're operating a curse scroll with a barbarian ring, or even 2 barbarian rings, which comes up, like, I don't.
Well, yeah, that's less than I
don't operate,
But even then, it's just kind of like I just don't like, I just like don't like this sort of card that reacts specifically to Phyrexian Dreadnought, and it's just like, okay, well, you lost game 1, so what are you gonna do? Like draw, like you either run 7 overloads and blast, like you either run like 10 cards for Dreadnought, or you just be like, okay, well, we lose to Dreadnought. Sometimes we'll win, sometimes we'll win, get lucky. But
what are the artifact decks that we need to? Also, none. Overload is a crappy artifact destruction card.
Yeah,
right?
It's horrible.
It does. Can it even target a smokestack? Like, that's a new card that people are playing again.
Yeah, right? I mean, okay, let's go ahead and zoom all the way out. Dreadnought is like the only meaningful artifact that's being played in the format. Like Curse Scroll is the second most meaningful artifact that people play in the format.
Yeah, like I mean, people have towers. They have a lot of decks have Zuran Orbs, right? And those cards are,
I mean,
annoying.
You know what else beats Zuran Orb is Sulfuric Vortex. So we're covered on Zorb. Zorb Vortex covers tower too. I just
man, that legacy tournament is just 1 round down. I'd probably be 1-0 right now.
You would have infected an entire room of legacy players, and also like the local legacy grinders. I mean, I don't know if Reed Duke is there, but everyone is gearing up for Eternal Weekend.
You're saying that it's just like minimum. There's going to be a minimum of Kaplan, Star City Legacy Champion, Roland Legacy World Champion, and 2 Pro Tour champions and then I haven't named any of the next 28 players, right?
And then the rest are just like,
that's the first 4 players, 2 Pro Tour champions.
Yeah, the rest is like, and then the rest is just like Murder's Row of like
people who give a
New
crap
York
about
crew
Legacy.
gearing up for Eternal Weekend. And you would be rolling up with Knight of the Reliquary. That would be your plan.
I have a Naya creature.
It's like a 3-mana 2/2.
I don't know anything about the format, right? Like that's.
You would have been better off playing Burn.
It's not good against Uro. That's what Detail told me.
I mean, that's true, but it's not good against a lot of things. It's not good against.
I have my own legacy deck if I'm allowed to play Burn. I used to play the Legacy Star City Opens all the time.
Yeah. You're allowed to play Burn.
I had a lot of top 16s, no top 8s.
Okay, I think we covered Burn. I don't know.
No, we didn't cover Burn. Here
cut the artifact tape.
All
right.
First round, I played against Elves. I lost game 1. I'm like, oh man, I'm not even able to face Lanny at the 1-0. I just lost game 1 to Elves. I got it back in the next 2, and I got to credit you. So I posted a tournament report in Pre-Modern for Non-Idiots. If you're not in Pre-Modern for Non-Idiots, you can utilize whatever search engines on whatever websites you can to try to find it. I actually thought it was better than the article I got paid for this week. So I was like, oh man, this is like more than 1,500 words and has like meaningful analysis and also sparked discussion, right? Like I think the comments that Rich Shea put in were just hyper valuable to me. Like, and Binary Soloist, people don't know who he is. He's like super locked in, and like he's exactly the kind of person I wanted to like recruit into the format. He's like super locked in, super thoughtful, not very experienced to the format yet, so he's still curious. So like us, we're just not curious. We're like, we have everything figured out, right? He's like still curious, asks a lot of questions that end up being very probing, and then still is 5-0ing leagues or whatever. So I think that the discourse that they had in the comment section was really meaningful, and I think Rich has really positively affected how I'm gonna sideboard in the future. But so I wrote this, and so first round I played against Elves, lost game 1, but I won the sideboarding games because I had read something. I don't know where I've even read it from.
I
don't know
put
if you
it
just put
on.
this
I put
Twitter.
on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Where you're just like, well, Sulfuric Vortex is good because it lets you play Gear 2 better. And I'm like, I am Gear 2 is my jam. I would just never play Gear 1 if you let me.
Yeah, you're just a mono red control.
Yeah, sometimes you draw 3 Jackal Pups and you're like, oh, Gear 1 chose me this time. Let's go. So I had one of those. You just drew 3 Swords to Plowshares. It was some BS. So I dealt 3 with your City of Brass that game. So yeah, I had Grim Lavamancer, Sulfuric Vortex, Lava Dart in game 2 and 3, and that's like basically the lock. In one game, I scared off a Spike Feeder. He had to survival it away. He has Spike Feeder and Grip. In the other game, he just sacrificed the Spike Feeder in response to the
Vortex. Yep.
The Vortex. What are you gonna do?
Yep.
Right? Like, I keep a bear against your Grim Lavamancer, or actually gain
or cash in for 4. And guess what? 4 life for 3 mana is not going to stack up against infinite life for 3 mana at the hands of Sulfuric Vortex.
Well, he was meaningfully ahead on the race at that point, right?
Yeah,
so,
but there's no way he'd stay ahead, right? There's no way he'd stay ahead. So like that's
Grim Lavamancer is the man.
Yeah,
sir.
And like now that okay, so there are some interesting spots though. I don't know. Now that White Weenie, I mean, I don't know. Let's just say creature deck. It's like if you have a Sulfuric Vortex in play, you can send all your Burn It creatures, and then that's all you got to do. You just send all your Burn It creatures, let the Vortex do the work, and then you cast your last burn spell. You can be at 2, your last Vortex trigger that's going to kill you on the stack, and then you just like kill your opponent. So, yeah, just
There's
lets
a lot
you.
Of ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a clock. It's like it's a creature that gets in every turn, and it's the same thing in the modern burn deck of just like putting your opponent in a like can't win situation with Eidolon of the Great Revel. It's just like, okay, well, you can no longer cast spells. Like you're going to lose this game eventually because you're going to take 2 damage from a turn from this, or you're going to take, 2 damage right now and then you'll lose anyways. Because, you didn't exchange favorably. So it's like,
just aggregate value got you.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's like, I feel I get it, like sorcery speed spell, kind of narrow, costs 3 mana. These are all things that are bad, but
should I just make a second Elves deck? I have enough cards to make this deck. Let's make a second Elves deck.
You have 8 Gaia's Cradles. I know you have like 6.
More than 8 Gaia's Cradles.
Okay, well. Then I would love that. I would love that because
more than 8
your resident.
That's why I was going to liquidate the expensive ones. Nobody needs to own as many Gaia's Cradles as I do.
Well, your resident card mooch would be very happy to have a Elves deck on his desk.
But I could, but the Finhorn Elves will be a new border. I mean, I'll have to get another. I was going to buy. Oh no, Mengu doesn't have Wooded Foothills anymore, so I don't need to get any more Wooded Foothills.
Yeah, just basic forest. Yeah,
I just could take this extra survive. I think I have 12 survivals. I'm not sure. But I have enough because I had a second set that I was going to play in Feb, so I can just put in this deck. But I have enough to make this deck right now, I think without moving any meaningful cards.
Okay.
I think I can make this deck.
Are we ready to move on from Burn?
Now I want to talk about Mengu's Elves deck, which we only touched on.
Okay, sure. Give it to me.
Main deck for Tangle Wire. That's like the class. You like Tangle Wire still? I cut it from all my decks.
I don't like Tangle Wire as a card because one of the things about it is that it has a very small window of relevancy, and because there's so much variance in your draws with elves, it's very hard to like put that Tangle Wire down on a turn where it just like does it needs to do all the things. So like, the ideal play pattern with Tangle Wire is just like, one, your opponent is on all sorcery speed interaction, so they don't have Fire Ice or Pyrokinesis. They're planning to get you either they're playing Replenish, they're playing Engineered Plagues that need to land on turn 3, they're playing Pernicious Deeds that need to land on turn 3, and they're playing Wrath of God. So like those are all these like sorcery speed cards that really get elves are what you're trying to stop with Tangle Wire. What the problem is, Replenish obviously can play from under a Tangle Wire or Frantic Search, but the problem is that Tangle Wire kind of only stops your opponent for like 2 turns from doing those things, barring them having any random permanents in play, which most of the time they don't. Like unless your rock opponent could have like a Wall of Blossoms and then, or worse, a Wall of Roots.
Yeah, the things you get in trouble with are like Sabo's webs, shield spheres, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Random. But I'm trying to name cards that are like in decks that are good, because I'm trying to put everyone's focus on things that you'll just see with I don't know, hopefully more frequency in pre-modern as not that I say, anyways,
furnaces,
more competitive. Yeah, if they have a random Phyrexian furnace, you'll get boned by that. And then secondly, when you drop your Tangle Wire and you have your 2-turn window where you get to operate, it's like, okay, well, you got to win the game, because like the incoming hammer from your opponent is still going to get you eventually, and you've spent a card for this. So you're kind of playing this like weird mana short down payment thing, and you can get obviously a lot of value for, like, you get a lot of tempo from it, but I don't think very many games of Elves are won with tempo. Like, I feel like it's like, okay, well, sometimes you just grind them out with Survival of the Fittest, and Tangle Wire doesn't like fit into that plan. Or sometimes, like, I don't know, you don't have time to cast the Tangle Wire because your opponent like is gonna interact with you on instant speed, or like cut out your key pieces. So it's just like, okay, what if you go like Tangle Wire, you get your turn 2 Tangle Wire and draw, right? They tap 2 lands, then you like run out of Survival of the Fittest, and then on their upkeep they like disenchant your survival, and then you're just like, on your next turn you're just like, okay, well, I got to like draw a card with survival, but I invested a Tangle Wire, and the next thing that my opponent does, the next interaction is going to come for me. So yeah, I really just like Tangle Wire and Elves currently. If everyone decides that they want to play combo, like Tangle Wire is good against Dreadnought, it's like double time walking against Dreadnought, which is super relevant. If the meta, if there are more like combo mid-range and control decks that were rearing their head that suffered under Tangle Wire, maybe. But
I feel like Mengu's deck doesn't punish people once it's landed Tangle Wire very well. Like, I think of the last player I know of, other than myself, who, I played a Tangle Wire bearded last year before I cut all the Tangle Wires from my deck. But I watched Olerade play a Tangle Wire, but he just kill you the next turn, right? Because he had anger, right? It's just anger. It is like small deployment, maybe one of his 2 Deranged Hermits or something, just gets you in 1 or 2 swings at that point. Mengu's deck could pretty much just play Elves. The next card in his list is the Sylvan Library, which he said he was going to cut, right? And the reason he was going to cut it is because everybody has main deck enchantment hate. And so, this is a card Fran's been talking about wanting to play. I'm down for cutting it. I don't have any blackboard with Sylvans that aren't embarrassing. So I'm down for cutting it. It's going to either be, and these are 2 of his other flex slots. He's got 3 Deranged Hermits main deck and 2 Masticores. That's one of the reasons I was interested in his deck. He's like, his deck just has more bones.
Yeah, it's just a Masticore deck. It's just an Elves. It's like it's a Deranged Hermit deck, and it's a Masticore deck, and it's just like it sinks. I had this musing. So other things that happened this week. Keep your eyes peeled for the next video from Fran, which is going to highlight his Covetous Dragon deck.
I'm down. That's a card that I have more than 4 copies of that aren't in any sleeves right now.
There you go. And one of the things about that deck, I was just kind of like, okay, well, ramp strategies are kind of in a strange place in pre-modern because they don't really function, right? So Thran Dynamo, Tron, Mirari's Wake, like these are all strategies that just don't kind of function. I'm like, because you don't have like a Grim Monolith. If you have a Grim Monolith to start the party, it's one thing. Yeah, right? that ramps a lot faster, right? So it's like ramp isn't very fast, and the thing that it does is not over the top enough. And the best ramp deck in pre-modern is Elves. Like how fast does Elves produce 10 mana? It's like, okay, well, it can do it on turn 3, right? What do you like? I don't know. What do you need 10 mana for? It's like, well,
2 Deranged Hermits that are attacking you this turn.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I don't know, like 10 mana, like it's actually really hard to convert 10 mana into a win in this format, as compared to a format like, any contemporary Magic, up to Pioneer, right? It's because Pioneer has the mono green devotion combo, which is actually kind of a relative to pre-modern Elves if you think about it.
Same.
Yeah, it's just the same deck. So So
it's
love
literally
that.
an 8-land war elf deck.
Yeah.
Tap a bunch of mana, make a prohibitively like. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know. I just flip over some cards from my deck, and then I put some other permanents into play.
Yeah.
You might know this as a natural order for a Kamal.
Yeah. You may recognize such hits as make a bunch of mana and just do, I don't know, just make a big, just make a guy, make a guy or a lot of guys.
A bunch of 1/1 tokens. Me too.
But yeah, so Elves is like a great ramp deck, and then Mengu is kind of just balancing, you know, like I think the ultimate balancing act with the deck like Elves is balancing your mana payoffs with your mana creations. Like you're playing a deck. Like one of the fundamental things that's very scary about Elves is that some players play as few as like 17 or 18 lands. And the reason's quite simple.
Deck has 18 land.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this right now.
Like 18 land is almost the bare minimum. So 18 land, if you play the mountain, means that you only have 13 lands that can play an elf on turn 1. And then God forbid your elf gets plowed and you're stuck on a 1-lander and whatnot. So you like,
AKA every time I've ever beaten elves with land still.
Right, exactly.
Every time.
So you're playing a deck and you're like, okay, well, this deck actually has like 1,000 mana sources. It has all the lands, but then it plays 12 elves that make mana and then 4 more elves that just untap the elves that make mana. So it's like plus 16.
Class of decks that starts at like super 0, right? Like every deck starts at 0, right? Like, but some decks start at super 0. But then, like, once they have, like, any amount of momentum, they're like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, a ton of resources.
Yeah, so you have 40 mana sources, and then you just have, like, you know, kind of 12 payoffs in the form of, like, survivals, plus Massacre, plus Deranged Hermit, you know, plus whatever. A biorhythm sometimes.
So I thought you would love Mengu's deck, because, like, this is just going to be, like, an 18 land. And it's all forests now, because Mengu played 6 fetch lands. But especially don't do anything, right? Like Mike Arnold's white fetch lands actually cast Absolute Law, and most people's red fetch lands get Mountain for Anger. But he's just like, nah, all they did was grow Terravores.
Well, I like...
By the way, he beat every Terravore deck he played against.
Yeah, that's, I mean, solid data. Well, so I wanted to add that I think that philosophically, I like Mengu's deck, because one of the things that I was making a point about with ramp is just like, okay, well, most of the time with ramping, you kill your opponent too hard, right? Like you, Michael J, are obsessed with dealing 3,000 damage with Kamal Fisticrosa, which is very interesting considering that your opponent only starts with 20 life points.
Yeah. So what I was saying
most
earlier
of the
in this
time,
very podcast, I was like, what if dopamine is my lead?
Yeah,
right.
It
like
is.
The fact that I know how, I'm like, hey guys, hold on. Look at how smart I am. I know how to return elves and forests to my hand in such a way that my Gaia's Cradle produces a lot of mana. Wait. We're not done. I have something to do with that mana.
Yeah. I mean
that is sending over like 2 elves that are both gigantic tramplers.
I mean, one of the things that I guess I dislike about Mengu's deck is that it's gonna pay the echo on Deranged Hermit a lot. Unless there's kind of something
combo deck.
Unless it's something that I'm missing. It was just kind of like, you're really just playing this guy and then paying the echo instead of like, you know, just getting in. Like I don't know. Like
that's
I do
the thing
think
I'm super used to. Like my fail state is I'm just sending a hermit or 2 for, you know, a ton of damage, and if they block, I just return the hermit to my hand. You know, like that's my you need thing that I know how to do. His deck can't do that.
Yeah, you need an entire, like, I mean, I don't know. I like it because one, we just talked about playing with style, and you know, this is just a perfect example of a deck designer and a pilot, you know, deciding something that suits his style.
This is force leverage, brother. Do you know how we beat those goblin decks?
Call a herd?
No, he just massacred their sharpshooter.
Okay, well, Massacre. But that's the thing, is like, you could just hold on.
In 2 different matchups, he lost his Massacre to removal, but had a second Massacre in his deck to kill their sharpshooter. And then he just went from there because he is an active Massacre.
Yeah, but
that's how we beat him. He's going to 3 Massacres main deck.
The Anger deck could just do the same thing by tutoring up their own sharpshooter, though.
No, but he lost his, not in game 1, but he lost his Massacre to removal.
No, just do it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, do it in game 1 if that's your preference. Like, we're not. So, okay. Let's
but
unpack.
That's 3 cards that aren't in his deck. Mountain, Anger, and Sharpshooter, and that presupposes that
And
he
you
has,
have my Granger, yeah.
yeah, that's like 4 cards that just aren't in his deck.
Yes.
And in at least one of those cases, he naturally drew the second Masticore.
Yeah, but however, the upside is that Masticore in a Sharpshooter environment needs 6 mana, needs 6 mana or a pass the turn to operate, right? So
yeah, he lost the Masticore, like I said.
Yeah, so this is something that we experienced when we were testing Elves vs. Goblins. I was just kind of like, okay, well, maybe Masticore would be good here, but one of the problems is I have no creatures in play. So like I need to play 4 lands out of my 18 or 19 land deck and then untap with this thing alive. You're giving the Goblins player another turn to get busy. The Masticore obviously doesn't have profitable blocks for fear of getting sharpshootered, and then it can take over the board. It's just kind of like, okay, well, what if I wanted to have one Masticore, one sharpshooter? What if I just like wanted to, like, I think the reason why I think this is a stylistic choice is just that Mengu wasn't gearing the deck just to be able to beat goblins. He was gearing the deck to just play differently entirely.
Well, yeah, I think the analogy I would be is just like, I am a modern Burn player who tries his hardest to never play in Gear 1.
Right, exactly.
Whereas the average modern Burn player is just trying to force Gear 1 all the time, right? Mengu played an Elves deck that doesn't have a Gear 1.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, so he has all the payoffs of an Elves deck that aren't its combo, right? And instead, he has a dramatically more robust matchup against Goblins, which is traditionally Elves' worst matchup. And so I think if you look at the kind of XY kind of Cartesian, position of this deck, like maybe it's just like a worse deck in the absolute abstract that has better matchups across the field.
Yeah. I mean,
and that maybe that just makes it a better deck.
But the whole point is that when the strategic complexity and the changes in percentages in one way or another just get washed out by you having the ability to maximize on a game plan that you feel comfortable with, or just that you prefer, right? So like,
this version must be dramatically worse than the mirror, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for those that don't know, the Elves Mirror is completely defined by the card Priest of Titania.
Because it counts both players.
It counts both players. And so the first person who has an unsummoning sick Priest of Titania wins the game. And the player...
Provided both players have Priest of Titania and Survival, right? If one player is Priest of Titania and Survival, the other one might be tapping their Priest of Titania to do anything.
That's true. But yeah, I am... My point is that, like, I think that Mengu's deck isn't, like, in order of magnitude, or isn't, like, better or worse than stock elves or whatever any other, or natural order elves, whatever.
Would
kind
you
of
think
elves.
Like stock elves is stock elves now, or do you think no elves is stock elves now?
I think that an elf deck with 4 Tangle Wire, Kamal and Anger, and 1 Masticore and 2 Deranged Hermit is stock elves. And then like the choices you make are like swapping in Force Mage, not playing Tangle Wire, and like whatever, Call the Claw, Elvish Champion,
I haven't played
Sharpshooter, yeah, random stuff like that. But like just like survival elves, like Tangle Wire you or not, but also just like Anger win the game, like that's stock elves to me. Natural order elves is just like basically the same stuff, but you're playing natural order. And then now we have like Angerless elves, and then we have Armageddon elves. But
yeah, I'm not that crazy.
So
although
all these
the thing is, Armageddon elves isn't even that different from this deck.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's the thing. It's weird.
Like imagine you just had elephant tokens. Like, can you just play green white elephant Geddon? Like, come on.
I'm like, is there a deck that's just like, what if we're just like green mid range?
Yep.
It's like if we're not going to combo anyway, right?
Just play Birds of Paradise. Anyway, like, just play Birds of Paradise, Survival.
Why don't I play like? I mean, I'm not going to go. I thought about Sun and Growth, Lanny. I'm telling you, Rich put that owl picture in Non-Idiots, and I can't stop thinking about Sun and Growth. But I mean, is Plow Under so crazy? Like Plow Under is a powerful Magic card.
I mean, yeah, like I think that it's a pretty bad way to use 5 mana in this format, but by all means.
Is it better or worse than Sun and Growth?
I mean, I think all of these cards are worse than Armageddon, which is sitting right there. So it's like you could play like a Birds of Paradise, Korean Ranger, green white Armageddon deck that has like, I don't know, random top end, Call the Herd,
So,
maybe creatures with threshold.
so also Pablo, the reigning European national champ, or yeah, Europe. That's not a national. European
Continental champion. Yeah.
Continental champion. So he's also a tribal force mage guy, no Kamal, right?
Yep.
So I think that the thing that really stands out to me about Mengu's deck isn't just 3, possibly 4 Drainage Hermit main deck, 2, possibly 3 Masticore main deck, but his sideboard is it's like basically it's like this transformational sideboard where he's just all in on
Wall of Blossoms and Call the Herd, just like dorks, guys.
Like, there's nothing that's good against goblins, but of the things that aren't good against goblins that you could potentially play, Wall of Blossoms is the best.
Yeah.
Right. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Wall of Blossoms is super solid against goblins. I mean, the most important thing here is I think Wall of Blossoms and Call the Herd being hard for goblins to remove means that your Gaia's Cradle can conceivably tap for 2 at any point. They're just like, don't die to Sharpshooter. That's what matters the most.
Yeah. If they're not getting in with Lackey, then you just have, especially if you have like 3 Masticore in your deck, you just have an increasing amount of time to just draw Masticore. And once Masticore is in play, what are they going to do? Masticore Cradle, right? Like, all right, I'm going to discard whatever forest or whatever I drew every turn. Big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's super solid. I mean, proof is in the pudding. He beat goblins twice. Obviously, we're just kind of.
And he's one match out of top 8. I'm sure if he had made top 8, he could have taken out a white weenie deck.
Could have done some work. Do
you think this deck must be much worse against Dreadnought, though, right? It only has 2 naturalize deck and sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the Call the Herd doesn't really do much against Dreadnought. It does do something. Like it does produce a clock, and it does produce card advantage if your Dreadnought opponent is trying to grind you out. But Elves has 2 ways to beat Dreadnought. One is to like combo out, and the other is
well, this one's not going to combo out.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. And the other is to just race on the ground. So just have like 5 power in play and get your Dreadnought opponent at a low life total.
How your opponent plays Addarkar Waste, Meddling Mage, Portent or whatever first couple of turns. How many Sword Splashers do you think are in his main deck?
Oh, that's a good question. So we have gone back and forth. Metelsky did not like playing very many swords, if any, when he was playing against Elves with Dreadnought. And I was mostly like, well, you'll still just like Swords of Priest, and that's like pretty good. But the more we talked about it and the more we talked about how to configure the Dreadnought deck against Elves, we pretty regularly ended up just like being low on plowshares.
I would, 6 months ago or whatever, LobsterCon era. I think of years in certain ways, just like, what were we doing around LobsterCon? What were we doing around PSS? That's kind of how I think about it. So I think like LobsterCon and PSS, blue-white Dreadnought decks are about the same to me. I would have added to 0 to 1, but I've gone back and looked at Kaplan's decks that he never loses with, apparently. Kaplan always has 2 in his main deck.
Yeah.
That is a statement. And so if you're
sorry, I thought you were talking about post board, but yeah.
No. Oh, post board, I think Kaplan's got like 1,000.
Yeah. Yes.
However, and then like probably Last Breath. I don't even know off the top of my head.
That's a good question.
Those are probably all in his deck. Because I think that the 12-12 deck has so many good game plans against Elves, right? They can play really just like play a 2/2, name Survival of the Fittest, and plow the Priest. That's all the game plan you need.
It's true.
Right? You just beat them with a 2/2.
Unless they play 2 3/3s in following turns.
I mean, you think is that Mengu's game? I guess Wall of Blossoms is sweet against the default strategy.
Yeah,
you really make them work, right? So he's got. I can't stand this 2 Nantuko Vigilante, no Uktabi Orangutan. Is that right?
I mean, I don't know what to tell you. We're just gonna have Mengu on the cast to talk about pre-modern.
I mean, he's in town right now.
It's true.
Literally in the city.
Call him up.
Literally played at Bifrost. What do you think Mengu's record was at the local?
I don't know.
Friday Night Magic.
I don't know. Tough one. I have to imagine it's got to be something along the lines of didn't lose.
I believe it was 3060.
Yeah. Just
It was definitely 30, but I believe it was 3060.
yeah. I mean, come on.
The
Like,
following cards were in his deck: Orcish Bowmaster, Force of Will, Lightning Bolt.
yeah, good cards.
Do you
Days.
think he would have been able to go 3060 with those cards in his deck?
Yeah. I mean, all foil too, all Japanese foil. So, shout out to Roland for lending Mengu a deck, and shout out to Mengu for being in New York City and not playing any pre-modern with us. What gives?
There was a pre-modern meetup this week.
I think. Oh man, he might have been in town at that time.
He might have been in the city.
Okay. Yeah, MenguElves deck. I mean, I don't know. Needs more data is my conclusion there. This
Can
week.
you imagine just coming to New York with your girlfriend and being like, "Sorry, honey, I got to play Friday night. I know it's Friday night in New York City, but I have to play this Legacy."
I don't know. She probably got to catch a Broadway show that she's been meaning to see. If Mengu's not into musicals. The funnier part is he probably spent around 5 figures for like nice English tabernacle and a beta balance. So there's that too.
Yeah. Shout out to Roland Chang.
Yeah. Hooked him. Although balance is a reprinted card, so it's not like the most expensive card of all time, but so yeah, just only a cool grandish for a balance, and I'm sure tabernacles are around.
Page must be doing real well.
Yeah. Or he's still using the money from the Mythic Invitational, the biggest prize
He won
pool
like
tournament.
$300,000.
Yeah, it's just like some
right?
unbelievable.
That's insane.
I mean, I wonder if
because he won one tournament and then was in the top 10 money winner.
He was the number 1 after that tournament. The number 1 money. Like he went from like 17 to 1 or whatever. Something unbelievable. Which, like, go figure. I mean, that's just how it goes.
No, I mean, John isn't the number 1 anymore.
I mean,
I thought John was still the number.
No. It was Mengu after that, but okay. I guess we're looking this one up.
No, we don't look up. That's a long stand. You might be wrong if you look it up. Let the listeners decide for themselves. But that payout was like 300.
Oh my God, we're so wrong, and we're so wrong on the top 10. But
is John number 1?
No, I said we're wrong. We're wrong, Mike. Number 1 is none other
Paulo Vitor
Damarosa, followed by my hero Gabriel Nassif, Seth Manfield, Marshall Carvalho, Shota Yasuoka, Reed Duke in 6, Javier Dominguez, then Andrea Mengucci. So Mengucci's lifetime winnings.
John isn't in the top 10.
He's not in the top 10. Then it's Huey and then LSV. John was playing in the pre-inflation era. What can you say?
Oh man,
Kai is 11. And he just top 8'd. Pro Tours, Mythic Champions, Mythic Invitationals, Magic World Cup, and the 1996 Type 1 Pro Tour. Not included Nationals, and Hotel Awards, PTQs, JSS, and Junior Pro Tour.
Oh, well, they stole John. I mean, John won a bunch of these
Nationals,
other ones that paid out tens of thousands,
Well,
stole from him.
I mean, yeah, John's 16, so he's just shy of 500K. But yeah, so Mengucci, of course, got 250K from that like one tournament, and then that just like put him in the top 10. Okay, so I exaggerated.
He's still spending that.
I
money.
did it like 5
years ago.
Well, it was so funny because when he won, he was just like, I guess I'm just gonna buy some beta power. like I always wanted. And it's just like, well, there goes that paycheck. Just like I'm going to Disneyland. Anyways, enough of that tangent. Fran and I both jammed 5 rounds of Oathpauloosh.
I was watching your match when you said let's start casting. So I was watching Fran's video he put out yesterday, and he was in the middle of the match against you. It looked like you were about to lose the game, but I don't know.
Oh, I was just throwing.
Why are you ruining it?
Because
I haven't watched it.
It's podcast time, so we just have to spoil.
No, but don't spoil it for me.
It's important data. No, you gotta come to the pod prepared, man. You have to watch Fran's video this week.
I'm watching a video that came out yesterday.
You gotta look at all the deck lists. I will tell you one thing. Oathpauloosh is not a beatdown deck, and therefore I have no clue what I'm doing with it. I also
had no idea what I was doing.
I had so many, I was I was just like looking or thinking about my games, and like it just like basically, so I got paired in round 3 or something versus like White Weenie. I won the match, but like in the last game, I just had like this interesting moment where I'm just like, oh, do I like do something here or do I pass the turn? And then of course I did something because I'm me. And then like afterwards I was like, oh my God, it would have been just so much better to pass the turn and just keep the passing the turn. Just like pass the turn, just like always be passing the turn and do nothing. It just like makes my like skin crawl. I actually think that Fran is a fairly proactive player. Like he is always doing something. Because the thing about passing the turn with the Oathpauloosh is like normally you just like pass the turn and your action is going to be actually like Rishton port. So like I had a thing where I'm like, okay, I can flip Angel or I can port. And I was playing in a deck that had access to blue mana or whatever. So it's just kind of like, oh, it's just so much better to like port blue source or flip Angel end of turn, port blue source Cataclysm, whatever. These like sequences that are just like kind of like what I couldn't quite figure out what it was, but basically what started happening was I was like, there are ways to play Magic that involve and this is like a rudimentary thing, like we all know this, but like I found the leak, which was just like I'm sort of bad at extracting maximum value from like these like weird, like I don't know, if I do this and then my opponent does this and then I do this and then I do this.
I'm super good at extracting maximum value if my opponent doesn't have anything.
Yeah, right.
Like, if they don't have anything, oh, I'm so good.
But as soon as
maximum value,
yeah.
Oh, they have a daze.
Well, okay, so
I'm really good at throwing all my value.
So you better get used to this scenario. The thing that I was trying to maximize and I did an okay job of was just basically it's like, okay, you're going to encounter this a lot in pre-modern. You have a face down Exalted Angel. Your opponent has a face down Exalted Angel. You have Source of Plowshares. Opponent has Source of Plowshares. This actually came up in Fran's video where Fran was just like, oh my God, I just traded 4 mana for a Source of Plowshares and my opponent got in an attack with their Angel because I was just like hanging back to block instead of attacking when they're tapped out. So like you're sitting here, you have 2 operations that you can do in instant speed. One of them costs 4 mana, one of them costs 1 mana. And you're just like, and this is what happened in my match was just like, I need to find a way to not flip my Angel into Swords of Plowshares and get my opponent to flip their Angel into Swords of Plowshares. And you're just like, and you've got ports and other stuff flying around. Cause like, obviously if you're not doing anything with your mana, it's very advantageous to just flip Angel at end of turn. Right. Yeah, so that was super interesting. Against Fran, I just like I took so many just beatdown lines. I was just like, okay, like if Fran has has interaction here, then I don't get a trigger.
Beatdown lines. Your deck has 6 creatures. Their deck has 8.
Yeah,
removal.
So I just tried to get them into play, man. Like that's what I was just doing. Like
6 creatures against 8 removal.
Like I was just okay, so I have 8 creatures in my build of Oathpauloosh because I just start the 4 Angels main deck because I'm just like, fuck it, we ball.
That actually makes you worse against Oath of Druids.
Yeah, I know. Because it makes your Oath of Druids really bad too.
And it makes their Terravore likelihood like whatever.
But you still need I mean, at least my analysis of the matchup is that you still need existential threats because
what are you trading off, like a Mox and
all the Moxes.
You have no Moxes?
Yeah.
This is the only deck on Earth where Lanny Huang has fewer Moxes than every other player in the entire pre-modern format. Like the normal recipe is like, oh, mono red, add 4 Moxes.
Yeah, yep. So and my thinking with that was actually pretty simple. It was just like, this is like the deck that only wants Mox in its opening hand. And I'm just like, yeah, no shit. Like every deck, like you can play any deck on the planet that like they all want Mox in their opening hand. Like the problem is like, how do you use Mox if you draw it later? I really don't like drawing it later. Obviously you can like line it up with the Cataclysm or whatever. This deck already has like 28 mana sources, 28 lands. Like you had the problem. You were just like, okay, well, I'm playing 28 lands and 4 Mox. I'm playing 32 things that only tap for mana. I had the problem where it's just like, I just like up to 6, you're good to keep playing lands. So why don't you just like play the land instead of playing the Mox? Like
you just have more cycling lands?
Yeah. You're not good at I mean, you're not like super good at using a Mox tempo because you have like treetop villages in your deck. So like the best thing that Mox does is let you play on tempo the turn that you play a tapped land, or like a sequence where you can be like, oh, I ported and wastelanded on the same turn. It's like, okay, turn 1 port, turn 2 wasteland Mox, waste 2 port you. Like And then of course turn 1 Sphere, turn 1 Oath of Druids are sweet, and turn 1 Sylvan is sweet. Those are all sweet things.
Do you have 4 Sylvan?
I ran. Okay, so
How
I'm
many
running.
Sylvan am I gonna have to own? I'm gonna buy these new.
You should get 4, but
this is annoying.
I have 2 with 2 Enlightened Tutors, and that's simply because I only own 2 Black Bordered Sylvans in real life, and so I just like wanted to keep my online deck the same as how I would play it in real life, even though I don't own Cataclysms. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I played the mirror versus Fran. Fran played the mirror, and then I played a pseudo mirror against a Threshold deck.
I like a Jeff Ferris,
like a
deck.
like a Werebear deck, and we all brawled it out, and we both had losing records. But if you don't count mirrors, our combined record was like 3 and 4, so it's like not horrible. But
that's horrible.
I got
last week. You said
it's the best second free one. Yeah.
No, you said like the only acceptable outcome is first place.
Oh, that's actually true. That I actually totally agree with that, and that definitely. What
do you think Dave Kaplan would be saying at the end of a 3 and 4 league?
Dave Kaplan would be saying, "Whatever I'm playing, I'm not playing it anymore." And that's what happened at LobsterCon. I'm still gonna lord that one over you, Dave. I lost to elves where not having diamonds hurt me, and a little bit of sequencing hurt me. I mean, I do want to say that like Fran made misplays that lost him his matches. I made misplays that lost me my matches. We both encountered these kind of like weirdly. I mean, Fran had like a weird blunder with whatever, but you know, our opponents blunder too, so we can't discount. You know, classic mistakes. Don't blame your mistakes, but yeah, versus elves.
That's why you lost.
Versus elves, I like, you know, had to like figure out how to like work around their naturalizes. I had like 2 curse totems and an Oath of Druids, and I couldn't bait out the naturalize on the curse totem, and then so I ran out the oath, and then they just beat me with 1/1s. My favorite way to win with elves.
Do you think it's worth exploring mono green Oathpauloosh at all? I was thinking about this a lot.
Okay, so I'll get to that. So one of the things is that mono green Oathpauloosh is a beatdown deck. So I'm down.
Why?
Because it's not ambiguous what you're supposed to do with your spells in your turns. You're just I'm going to cast the Winter's Grasp. Yeah.
And, and turn your guy sideways.
Like, what I would do, and I've just been yelling and screaming this with mono green Oathpauloosh, or rather mono green Tyrant Oath, the mono green Terravore Oath deck, is to not play Monarch Diamond, play Wild Growth, play whatever you can.
Exploration is a good card to throw away to a smokestack, right?
That's the whole concept behind the exploration in the deck, but like I still dislike exploration in the deck. Just play. Like they really hate mulch in that deck, which I'm inclined to agree. But I did get
mulch deck.
I mean, I think it's a decent mulch deck for sure, because it runs 4 Port, 4 Wasteland, 4 Mishra's Factory, and 4 Treetop Village, so it has 12 spell lands.
And some number of Dust Bowls potentially.
And Smokestack now. So
this is a great mulch deck.
All good reasons to draw lands, but that's neither here nor there. I'll leave it to the people who actually play the deck to be in on it. But yeah, I don't know. Only having green mana is like pretty loose and just like.
So I think you should. I personally think you should play a mountain. You should play Wooded Foothills instead of Windswept. They have Windswept Heath for no reason, right? Like,
yeah, just growing Terravores.
Yeah, just no good reason. You just play Wooded Foothills instead. And so I was thinking about this. I'm just like, well, I could not side in Phoenix in the mirror. Like if I was playing the quasi mirror against regular Oathpauloosh or some sort of Terravore variant, I could side in Blessing and not Phoenix, and then I could just like, who cares if I flip the Blessing with my oath or your oath? You're keeping our Terravores big, right? And then I could just recycle key resources, and draw cards with.
Well, so I wanted to talk about
Blessing. That seems awesome to me.
I wanted to talk about, since Fran played a mirror and I played a mirror, what we're doing about breakers for the mirror. So I tried out Kurtar's Desire this time around.
That was great. I played against it. I got my butt handed to me.
Yeah. It's a little weird though, because you always need a hedge with the copy of Swords to Plowshares, because if they just like blow up your Kurtars and send.
Yeah, but you can't have. Okay, I think the best card against both mono green and mirror, if you're gonna play this kind of deck, is just Ray of Revelation.
Yeah, exactly. But the Ray of Revelation lines up extremely well against Kurtar's Desire. And I have 3 in my 75.
So like Sitsis didn't play
Sphere Resistance. Yeah, so he's got some slots.
Which is like insane in the mirror, right? Like if I have Sphere Resistance,
and you don't,
That's insane, huge. But then it makes you probably makes you a lot worse against Dave Gapp.
Well, so one of my wins in the league was against Dream Halls, in which I just resolved Sphere of Resistance and they can't do anything. So that was funny. But
I mean, nice opponents.
Yeah.
Dream Halls?
Yeah. Well,
what do they even play? Is that a Brain Freeze deck?
Yeah, it's a Brain Freeze deck. It's not very good against Sphere of Resistance.
Sounds
I'll tell you
terrible.
That. So I beat White Weenie. I lost to Elves. I lost to Fran, and then I lost to. I kind of punted the Threshold match because like I just like didn't put.
You're saying you lost again?
Yeah.
Maybe you should wait. So what?
I didn't
what
lose. I didn't lose again.
Have?
No, I didn't lose again. I 4-1'd the first time I played it.
Why do you think Oathpauloosh is the best deck in the field? Before I start deciding something's the best deck in the field, I usually have, I don't know, some amount of positive results with it that makes me like it.
I had good results with it. You of course top forward. It of course got second place at Sacred Torch, and it could have gotten first place with a little bit more understanding of the Hermit Fed matchup. Fran's results.
If you're just gonna play on Moto,
Fran's results are super good. And when I look at the deck and think about like what its cards do and how good they line up against the metagame, like I think it's very strong. And you're right. Like I needed to like expose some weakness to see like firsthand for myself is like what it looks like when the deck loses. But the problem was I didn't have a very large sample size because I was like watching Fran videos. I'm like, well, Fran's winning a lot. And I was like, oh, I watch Adam lose. I'm like, well, Adam lost because he didn't know how to time his Tormod's Crypt. And then like I had one loss where my opponent went Swamp Ritual, 3 dudes or 2 dudes, Swamp Ritual, Withered Wretch, Potato. I played Oath of Druids, and then they played 3 straight removal spells on the next thing.
That mono black Clerics deck could be a real deck. That deck ranched Fran, and like I cannot imagine 12-12 beating that deck. That's the other thing. They're just like smother and snuff out and like some stupid freaking idiots. Like, here's my Rotlung Reanimator. Yeah. What do you think about that, Meddling Mage?
No, I mean, deck is sweet. I think it's a good beatdown deck. I think it's a good deck.
Yeah, but then what's it bad against? Red decks?
Like, I mean, it's bad against everything. Like, it's bad against Replenish. I don't think. Well, okay.
Red your face.
Let's see. No, you're just never withered. You're never withered wretch. I've never lost a withered wretch with Replenish.
Withered wretch in your face.
Just stop saying withered wretch.
Targeting.
I've never lost. I played like 100 matches of Replenish. I played probably like 20 against withered wretch. Never lost to it.
Okay, this is what we're gonna do. Before next week, because I guess we're gonna do KBBQ. Is that what we're doing next week?
Yeah. I mean, if it's in Brooklyn, I'm down.
Yeah, if there's a unlimited KBBQ like across the street.
You're gonna build a cleric stack, and we're just gonna.
I'll build a cleric stack.
Yeah.
No, here's no. Here's how it's gonna go. You pick Rebel or Roman. I get the other one.
And we coach. We
no. One of them gets clerics. One of them gets Replenish. That is gonna determine.
We're gonna Ratatouille the.
Yeah. So this is no coaching. No coaching. Like,
oh man, I think you have to. I don't know who.
Do you?
Who'd put?
Do you have to?
I don't know who you would put on which deck. I don't know who you put on which deck.
I mean, if you want yours to win, I think you better make sure.
Anyways, I'm actually coming around to your point. Hold on. So the problem I have with the Cleric's deck was that it is not good against Oath of Druids unless Fran refuses to
ranched Fran and eradicated.
No. Fran in game 1, Fran refused. Like Fran played Sylvan Library instead of Enlightened Tutor.
Okay.
So
Fran got his guy eradicated and then could not win.
No. That was game 2 after he threw. Like Fran was like, oh my god, my opponent was so prepared for Oath of Druids with Eradicate. I'm just like, what are you talking about? You have 2 creatures that win the game if they get pooped out of Oath of Druids. Eradicate costs 4 mana. And one of the things that's really good against Mono Black deck is putting Oath of Druids in play, which he just elected not to do. He was like, instead of... Oh my god. Okay, so... Oh my god. This is so mean to Fran. But instead of playing Enlightened Tutor with 2 mana, he plays Sylvan Library on 2 mana, and then he Enlightened Tutors in his upkeep, thinking that he's going to get a mana source for free under the Oath of Druids that the... oh my God. He didn't Enlightened Tutor in his upkeep, he Enlightened Tutor on his draw step. So drew a card, it wasn't a land. Then he cast Enlightened Tutor, and put Oath on top. So then he looks at the 2 from the Sylvan draw, and he doesn't see a land there.
Get the Oath.
So he can't pick up land Oath. So he can't play Oath because he's stuck on 1 mana on top for the turn.
I watched this match. I got to your match.
He puts Oath in his hand, and then he gets Oath Cabal Therapy. So if he didn't do that, he just has Oath on the table versus a mono black deck, which is really, really good. Now, Eradicate is pretty sick. Don't get me wrong. I
eradicated a Lincivi back in 2000. The only time I've ever beaten Dennis Sau. Dennis Sau came in second to Kaplan at the Legacy whatever K last week. Dennis Sau has been beating the bejesus out of me since the 1990s.
Love to see it. So
why do you love to see it? That guy's got my number.
It's a good story.
He still plays in RCQs.
Let's get him into pre-modern.
No, why? Why?
Good competition.
I can't beat him. Well, can't be. I would rather play any of these Pro Tour champions.
All the more reason to.
Damn it. You're probably right.
Yeah,
That's the sentiment of many of the players.
Yeah.
That guy has literally had my number since like 1998.
I mean, Fran has my number. I just like, I can't beat the guy, except for when we're doing test matches against this horrible deck. But that's what we'll get to next.
I mean, if you want to count lifetime matches, I've played a lot of horrible decks against you in testing.
That's true. I beat you with Grotog versus Burn, so that's really all that counts to me. Anyways,
I wanted to say one more thing about Burn. I think pre-modern Burn might be my favorite deck of all time. I would have thought like maybe modern Burn is my favorite deck of all time, but pre-modern Burn is the deck that made me fall in love with pre-modern, and pre-modern is my favorite.
We both had great. Like we literally had the most fun meetup that either of us had played in probably a long time, and like we were both playing, our decks. Like we're just playing the decks that we care about.
I am so happy you gave me those 4 and black border lightning bolts. It's just like put it all together. You know what I'm saying? Like I have a non-embarrassing deck.
Yeah, I knew it when I asked you. I was just like, you're over here. It's like, oh man, I rolled up to LobsterCon and I had Tempest Circle Protection red. I had Tempest Circle red, and Michael J goes, "Oh, I could have lent you Beta Circle red," and I was just like, oh, "Who cares?" Like in Circle red. And then like a few weeks later, Mike's just like, "Man, what's the price on old border black border bolts?" And he's just like, "Oh man, I can't believe I don't have those." And I'm just like, "Oh, Beta Circle red over here doesn't own foreign black border, old border lightning bolts of all the cards." Like you don't think
of all the cards.
You don't think for the last 30 years he might have picked up for anyway. So I saw a sick deal and scooped him up for the homie, and now the deck is complete. But yeah, no, we played. I mean, so one of the responses that I got from the pod, in which I don't know, probably just the podcast in general. So like people typically come to us and they're just like, "Man, you guys don't like fun." And I'm exaggerating for
what do you mean?
effect.
I love fun.
Like all you guys care about is like building like these tier 1 decks and playing these tier 1 decks, and pre-modern is about like playing a tier 3 deck and just like loving every minute of losing with it because you just like won one game. And my answer to that is that, one, I play a lot of horrible decks and I brew a lot of horrible decks. I just don't share them to you because I see it as a public disservice to share a deck that sucks.
Those are just not decks we would ever like. You have not seen whatever monstrosities I make Lanny play against,
exactly. And
but I will make him play for hours. That's the thing. Like
true.
I mean, I played at Tau House once, and I was just insisting that my deck was good. D-Tau was 9-0 against me.
Okay? You're like, let's go for 10. Yeah.
And refused to play the 10th game. And I'm like, no.
I need this.
I'm sure I got it.
I got it
He's
this
just
time.
like, I will not play the 10th game. And I mean, I was so
Yeah, but anyways, we were in our happy places on Tuesday. I was playing Grotog, Mike was playing Burn, and just like couldn't imagine the night being more fun. Also, shout out to the homie SWB.
SWB.
I did not realize that he immigrated to New York City from Nashville, Tennessee, in which he is a fixture in the Nashville old school, pre-modern, classic
also
vintage
just
scene.
like I guess ancient JSS era friend of me. I don't know, Zach Hill. He's just like, here's me and Zach when we were 12.
And he
what?
handed out, you'll have to check this out on Twitter. He handed out booster packs of 5th edition, which I don't know how much those go for. I assumed that it wasn't a lot because he was just like, oh, I just had store credit at Bifrost and I just bought the box of 5th. And then we started opening boosters. Cam opened a Howling Mine. I opened a bunch of commons and uncommons that were kind of sick. I opened Atog, Hydroblast, Ray of Command, and Black Knight. You opened a Goblin King, which is actually
I bought that printing of Goblin King.
Right, exactly. You
for
bought
my meme deck.
You opened a Goblin King, which is like, I don't know, $5, and then he took it down to Nashville, and some guy opened a Wrath of God, and I'm just like, wait, these are all sick cards. Like, these packs are amazing.
So
like,
I think
there's a lot of horrible stuff in there. Orchestra.
I'm gonna bring. So I have just years and years of FNM winnings, right? That I just never open.
Yeah.
So it's not old packs, but I think I'm just gonna bring 4 packs every night to meetups, and if you beat me, you get a pack. How about that? he gives a pack no matter what. But I'm like, if you beat me, you get a pack.
Real Christmas spirit coming through.
It's not gonna be Christmas all year round, Lanny.
It's true. It's only Christmas when you beat Michael J. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. Oathpauloosh, like, I wish I played it well enough to like feel it. It does do, like, one of the things that it does do is that it does get into like these weird situations. You called it out, which is just like these like low resource situations in which like your deck isn't delivering you the goods. But the flip side of that is that, again, like Sphere of Resistance, Sylvan Library, Oath of Druids, Cataclysm, like these cards combined with the mana base, like combined like what the deck is doing, is just like very, very oppressive. A lot of these cards win the game on the spot, like when you draw them or play them. You're like, it's not like obvious. Like obviously, Parfait was a much more powerful deck.
Well, I think Parfait is a more oppressive deck.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that. Like, well, okay, so one of the things that I was kind of musing about was just like one of the things that Parfait, like the great disadvantage of Parfait is that it never ran manlands, and Treetop Village is actually kind of like a hell of a card. So having that sort of like going alongside your prison strategy to like kind of like the deck can like all of a sudden be the beatdown and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I was just like thinking about it. I was just kind of like, manlands are kind of super sweet. Obviously Freeport and Wasteland is super sweet. The only problem is that if you just don't draw those cards, like I was like, one thing that happens with the deck is you're just like, man, I would probably be winning in this situation if only I had drawn Swords to Plowshares, or I don't like, oh, I saw 0 plows this game, or oh, I saw 0 oaths, or like, oh, I didn't draw my Wasteland.
What did you draw in this game? Just like all Sphere of Resistance and Mox?
Well, I didn't have Mox.
No,
but yeah.
I'm just talking about it. This conjectural game was like, I didn't draw Sphere.
No. I'm just saying different games, right?
I didn't draw Oath.
Like you just like didn't line up your stuff. Like, I lost to Elves. Like they had like, I don't know, something like a triple naturalize hand or something. So I had like Curse Totem, naturalize, Oath of Druids, naturalize, Argivian Find my Oath of Druids, naturalize kind of thing. That might be like one more naturalize or whatever. Maybe the Curse Totem stuck in that game. But yeah, basically I had that. And then it's like I didn't have Plowshares, or actually, no, that's exactly the situation I'm talking about. So I had a game. I had Oath of Druids, Argivian Find Oath of Druids. They had naturalize. Then I had Curse Totem versus Board. And then my deck failed to deliver me a single thing that could block 3 damage a turn from like Symbiote, Elf for like 6 turns, and that's how I lost.
Embarrassing. Like a Mishra's Factory is enough.
Exactly. Like,
or you don't have Mishra's.
I don't have Mishra's, but a treetop is enough. Or obviously, I'm not going to be mad if it's a Terravore.
A dude.
Yeah. So, I was just kind of like, I'm like a little bit sad about that.
I need to pause you real quick. I need to ask you a question because this is actually something I was thinking about that we touched on. But so let's say I'm playing mono green Oathpauloosh, right? Because this is where my head is at right now, and I don't know if I don't know if I would ever actually do this. Right? I'm just thinking about it a lot, right? So my sideboard strat's going to be Guy's Blessing, Shard Phoenix. But if you're Guy's Blessing, Shard Phoenix after board, you can't really bring in Curse Totem, right? Because Curse Totem turns off Shard Phoenix.
That is correct.
What if you, and also, I mean, it is kind of hot and cold.
Crater Alien is what you're about to say.
Well, no. What if I just brought in Pyroclasm in the
mono green deck? Yeah.
No, yeah, in what is currently the Curse Totem slot. Because like Curse Totem is a card you have to cast, right? Because 2 casting cost card you have to cast. Which is the same. I just bring in a different 2 casting cost card I have to cast. I'm like, well, what about red sources? It's not that bad. You got like 4.
You'll engineer it such that you have enough. Yeah.
Yeah, like 4 Wooded Foothills, a mountain, 4 Mox, and then maybe I would just play like 2 Ritzgrove or something as well. Right? Like,
of course,
although that doesn't make that much sense in mono green. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. But is that crazy? I really like this idea.
What's nice about Curse Totem is that it turns off Druid Lyrist.
Well, I'll just kill it with my Pyroclasm or Shard Phoenix.
Well, but it'll have tagged your Oath in that time is the idea. So,
well, one of the main differences I think in this sideboard strategy versus historical is just that you just have a different game plan, right? Like if you wanted to play the Terravore game plan, you could. But I kind of like just siding in Gaia's Blessing in the quasi mirrors, right? Where we still have Terravores. Our Terravores are big based on your graveyard. Then.
Yeah. I mean, we need to.
I get to recycle primary resources. I could get to recycle my naturalizes, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, we need to. This requires some science. This requires a little bit of data.
I mean, I can't. I don't think you could realistically now start playing a lot of blasts, also, right? Like that might be too much. But
I mean, I think it's reasonable. Like, the question then just becomes like, okay, like why don't you just play a green-red prison deck that only oaths out Shard Phoenix, or just like has Phoenix Chosen or some BS,
I mean,
or why don't you just like splash red into Moltrack and?
Well, if I'm going to play Moltrack, right, what we've been calling Landy Hoth, I think that if I were going to change that deck up, I would use Rich's version, which is literally Landy Hoth with the Zer's weirding.
The Zer's weirding. Okay, that's the thing that brings it home.
It's just Landy. So, there's nothing spicy about this deck. It's Land's deck, 1 Zer's weirding, and then has like Gemstone Mine and Undiscovered Paradise to support casting as well.
Well, he added Abundance and Words of Worship to support the main engine. But I wanted to point out that Zer's weirding,
playing, honestly.
Zer's weirding you really don't need. So I took Rich's deck for a spin. This is a green-white splashing blue prison deck based on Landy Ho's green-white mulch oath deck. It's just like Oath with Phoenix Chosen. I've talked about how I think the Phoenix Chosen deck, like there should be an Oath Phoenix Chosen deck. We just kind of haven't built it yet.
There is. People just aren't playing Landy Hoth as much as they're playing Oathpauloosh right now.
Yeah, sure. But
like if you played Landy Hoth against Oathpauloosh, I think you would see that Landy Hoth has a huge matchup advantage.
I don't disagree because, like you said, Gaia's Blessing Sword Splashers. But one of the cool things is that Zer's weirding is like doesn't really need Ivory Tower backup if you just like have Treetop Village. So,
that is a cool sentence.
Yeah, like one of the Parfait didn't run Manland, so like Parfait would run out the lock with Ivory Tower and Zer's weirding. But like if you just have Treetop Village, then you're good, and you're playing Treetop Village for free in this deck. So, Zer's weirding fits in super well. You don't even have to run Words of Worship, which lets you forego your draw for 5 life, which then you can cash in for your Zer's.
Wait, so how does Words of Worship work with Abundance?
So this deck has 3 ways to replace its draws: Zer's weirding, Words of Worship, and Abundance. And the owner of the effect that is getting replaced by a replacement effect gets to choose which replacement effect to use. So on your draw step or your triple draw step with Sylvan Library, you can allow your opponent to pay 2 life, you can gain 5 life instead of drawing, or you can choose land or non-land.
So you just break the symmetry.
Yeah.
Any 2 of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, so Sylvan Abundance is just draw 3 cards a turn. It's just tax rack.
We draw a land and 2 spells a turn.
No, you can draw whatever combination of things you want. You can just say non-land 3 times.
What you would do is draw a land and 2 spells a turn.
Yeah, if you want to keep playing lands, obviously. Anyways, so yeah, Fran and I had middling results. Misplays. Like, I still think that it's a really good Oath deck. It's a really good Cataclysm deck. It's a really good Sphere of Resistance deck. Like, I won a match on the back of just Sphere of Resistance being present. One of the big things was like, I think the thing that I'm most attracted to about the deck is that Oath decks have historically been not very good against combo decks. Like Parfait, like I brag about this all the time. Like, I went like 5 matches of Devourer combo versus Parfait against Mark Vogt, and I just like got him every time. Like, it's just like, it wasn't really that hard. Replenish was super good against Parfait, as I've always said, and Dreadnought, Blue-White Dreadnought was quite good against Parfait. Obviously a little bit closer than, say, Replenish versus Parfait, but still quite good. And Oathpauloosh feels like a deck that addresses all of those weaknesses of the previous Parfait Oath deck, and gaining a lot of strength against mid-range. So like the Rock and Dead Gael and Landstill were also decks that could kind of defeat Parfait in various amounts. Landstill was super favored, Rock was mildly favored, and then Dead Gael depends on if you are, like, let's call it black-white mid-range. Like, if you're playing a deck with a ton of discard and Vindicate and Disenchant effects, also good against Parfait. So this deck is not like, Fran lost to the Rock in his video, but it was at least close enough, and there were a lot of decision points there that I'm just kind of like, okay, well,
maybe he just wasn't playing well that day.
He definitely
was just saying stuff like, I don't even know who's ahead.
Like, yeah. He wasn't as dialed in. I agree. Well, he was learning. Like, he was just like in his like, one of the things he told me was like, I learned more from that league. He probably says in the video wrap, but he's like, I learned more from that league going 2 and 3 than than I would have going 5-0, because he's just kind of like put himself in situations that were novel. But like, my baseline reasoning of why the deck is so powerful is just like, 1, it's very good at winning games where Oath gets triggered, and then 2, when Oath doesn't get triggered, it's really good at doing plenty other stuff with its mana and cards, and like, the pieces all fit and the game plan all fits, and once we figure out the perfect sideboard, I think the deck is in many ways going to be a force to be reckoned with, that you can basically only compete with it using Burn. Like, Burn is like the one. Burn feels like the most open shut matchup for the deck. Like, it definitely feels like the worst matchup. So
you said in your vibes tier list last week that Burn is like the least embarrassing that it's been in years. Something like that, right? I feel like it's just one of the best decks, right?
I mean,
like,
that's because of your emotion leak. You just like, you played it recently, so you're just like feeling it.
It's good against Oathpauloosh.
It's good against elves. It's good against goblins.
Good against elves. I could win either side, but I feel like average person thinks it's good against goblins.
It's
like
favored on balance, yeah.
You're right, but it's just just what is the top tier, right?
It's just so
great against elves.
It's just so bad against Dreadnought. It's so bad against Dreadnought, and then
what if we were just mono blasts?
I mean, the thing. I mean, I don't disagree, but I think that it.
Has anyone ever actually gone to war with 6+ blasts? That's a question. No.
Me. I just didn't play Dreadnought that week. I just didn't play Dreadnought that week.
I had 5 blasts in the meetup that I beat Dreadnought twice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm willing to, like, shout out to Iron Lungs. He has won at least a match or 2 versus Dreadnought with Burn after getting the snot kicked out of him by Dave Kaplan in consecutive weeks.
Everybody loses to Dave Kaplan.
Yeah, but he finally was rewarded with a top finish in a playoff with Burn. One of the things that he played was I don't want to talk too much about this, but he has 3 Phyrexian Furnace main deck.
All right, so this was in Non-Idiots this week. Binary Soloist and Chris DiBiase is Iron Lungs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so they were talking about like Furnace Burn and like 22 lands, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yep. That's like you said, if you could only play Gear 2 at all times, you would. Chris is saying, hell's yeah, man. Like, let's pay 2 mana to draw a card. Let's sometimes pick off. One of the things that I dislike about strategy, again, we're all intellectuals here, so this is so I'll go ahead and talk about what Iron Lungs or Chris really love.
Straight up 2 mana worse than an Urza's Bauble.
He loved.
That's like the difference between an Opt and a Hundrug.
Well, he just liked picking off random graveyard stuff, which came in handy. He was just like, if you take away,
it's just
he's just like, I just took away Squee.
One.
And I was like, whatever. And then, but yeah, that, like you said, it's just like, okay, well, then you don't Gear 1 that much, but it suited how he, he just plays this, like, one of the things he was just like saying, I think it's super interesting. I'm not going to do it because.
Back in the day, I played a lot of decks that would good at being Gear 1 after sideboarding, maybe, right? Like, I give up some speed in game 1 because always
you got to be fast in game 1 and then slow in game 2 and 3, right?
Maybe there's different ways of playing.
No, I guess I agree strictly because like one of the things that I experienced in Modern was just I was just like, man, like this deck is a mono red control deck like so often, like unbelievable, like you were saying, you're just like, oh, I just like live for this. I live for playing this deck slow. I'm just like, why don't you just like, we board out Lava Spike in so many matchups. Why don't we just like don't start Lava Spike, right?
Because you get mad free wins.
Yeah, exactly. So of course Chris is basically going for the same thing, which he's just kind of like, okay, well, I have marginal value against Elves, Replenish, and the Mirror. He was just like, in the Mirror, like my opponent never gets to Grim Lava Man me. Like that's actually kind of sick. Just like they never have Threshold. They never get a Lava Man me. Like I just hold off that entire angle.
Back in '99, we used to play Arc Lightning, Lanny.
Arc
me and Adrian had so many decks with Arc Lightning.
That's sweet. Does it only hit creatures?
No.
Okay. Well then,
3 mana, 3 damage, any 3
waves. Then it can be a gear 1 card. Not a good one, but it still gets there.
That's no one has ever Gear 1 to 3 mana for 3 damage.
Okay.
Like you are holding your nose if there's a volcanic hammer in your deck.
I'm willing to move Burn up in the tier list. I think I just still have some misgivings.
It's got to be tier 1.
I said the same. No. So get out of here with your tier 1. You can't play a tournament and expect to beat Dreadnought twice. You can't be close against. You can't like sometimes lose to Elves, right? You can miss top 8 if you sometimes lose to Elves. Like it's just not what tier 1 decks look like. Like. You want to be the deck that beats everything and then sometimes beats its bad matchups. It's just kind of like that's how I feel.
That's literally Burn.
I think that Burn, the whole sometimes lose to Elves, sometimes lose to Goblins, and then always lose to the guy who shows up. Binary Solace just tweeted. He was just like, I went to F&M and my Esper control opponent had 3 timely reinforcements and whatever in his sideboard, so I lost to that. And then Joey Pasco was just like, Joey Pasco commented just like, well, you're going to lose to the guy who shows up to beat you.
I don't know. I beat N-Boss in consecutive Star City Super IQs, Swiss, both times. He was like one of the first players playing Mystical Sanctuary, and he had 3 timely reinforcements in his main deck because Roman and I were both playing into the tournament. I beat him in the Swiss both weeks.
Well, you just become Death Shadow. Just like, fine, I'll go to 10 first, and then you burn him out.
I beat him.
He probably just
both weeks.
I think our friend didn't have the heuristic for playing against Timely. You just start lowering your own life total then. But
it's really annoying. That's the worst card.
it is pretty good. But come on, Esper Control, are you kidding me? Anyways,
Paulik Lopez, he played in Worlds once, so he's pretty good. And I met him because I beat him in the finals of PTQ once. I roll into this PTQ, right? And he just takes one look at me and he says, watch this. He slides 2 more main deck timelies into his deck and has one in his sideboard. I lost to him in the top 4, even though I was on the play. It was the worst. Luck, he won the PTQ, obviously.
Yeah.
But he's just like, I only needed to beat 1 player, and I got him.
That's our meetup logic. That's what's going to happen if you
that
show
is
up
the
against...
meetup logic, right? We played in the top 4.
Yep. I mean, I had 3 chills. I was just like, oh, I can't find my 4th chill. I guess I'm gonna lose to Mike because I can't mulligan to chill. Guess what? I beat you without chill. I didn't even chill. You had plenty of lands in play.
All right, new sideboard.
Gush, psych
one
talk.
curse scroll, 8 blasts.
All right, so this week following the meetup, I got to get back on some Grow Talk games, and let me tell you, the Hidden Gibbons plan, I don't own them right now, but I'm gonna need to order them because I love it. Mainly because I don't play against Burn ever.
I just hated it.
No, I hated it in the Rock. But remember, we theory crafted that it'd be good against Grow Talk because Grow Talk is always putting pressure on the opponent. The opponent can't like time their like swords to plowshares.
It just instance turns it on.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not good against Lanny Burn, which is all sorcery.
All non-instance. Yeah. No, it's good against. It's good against. I mean, it's good against Burn because you're just gonna like play Meddling Mage, and then that Meddling Mage is like gonna hold things down. If a Grim never hits the table, obviously you're trying to beat Curse Scroll, but so long as you, like.
Well, you can't never turn on a Hidden Gibbons, right? Because you need to just get a shock out of your hand, right? Like
that's a good point. So you can't never turn on a Hidden Gibbons with if you have Curse Scroll on the table, but more importantly, you can't suppress a Hidden Gibbons, right? So it's like if I go turn 1 Hidden Gibbons, turn 2 Quirion Dryad, you're like, okay, enjoy your 4/4 because I'd rather that than a 7/7, you know? So
man, that sounds terrible to me.
I think
it sounds terrible for me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So anyways, the only problem is the deck only runs 8 sources of green mana. So it's really hard to link up
like a turn 1 Hidden Gibbons.
Yeah. So, but when it does happen, it's super sick. And then you get this card that makes you super threat dense against every control deck. So what the control deck, like, I don't know, it's just like what they have to do is they have to go like end of turn impulse, untap Wrath of God. It's just like I've never had Wrath of God resolve against my Grow Talk deck. It's like it costs 4 mana. Good luck. Like you need 6 mana for counterspell backup.
Why are you so just above playing mana control? Right? Like you would stop the red deck if you just had Winter Orb or Armageddon.
I mean, I just like playing Hidden Gibbons more so because with the red deck, I wouldn't win with Armageddon or Winter Orb unless I also had... Well, so Winter Orb cuts off Curse Scroll. But you kind of still need Chill because, like, they can just, like, I don't know. Fire Blast is a free card, so...
All right, 1 Hidden Gibbons, 1 Chill, 1 Armageddon.
4 Hidden Gibbons. I'm hiding Gibbons everywhere. You're just like walking around the battlefield.
Really need to win game
You're like, oh my God, there's Gibbons. Where did they come from? They were hidden from me. I tried to impulse, there's a Gibbon. I tried to plowshares, there's a Gibbon. I tried to factor fiction, there's a Gibbon.
4 Firebolt. 4 Volcanic Hammer.
4 Arc Lightning. Let's go.
Your Hidden Gibbons tech. The Gibbons are never coming out of hiding.
Yeah. So anyways, preliminary results, loving Hidden Gibbons. And the reason why I loved it is because the Rock just didn't put pressure on its opponents, like, and couldn't play this tempo game. Tempo game's like the only game that Grow Talk plays. And I like I don't know, like Armageddon was like so weird because you need to cast Armageddon into your counterspell opponent, right? If they're like a landstill player. So you need to play Armageddon with like foil backup. But if you play Armageddon with foil backup, you're just like 4/4ing. And it's like if they're just like sandbagging lands or like sandbagging land plowshares or whatever, like you don't have like escape velocity.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, you're way better at operating in a post Armageddon universe than they are for at least for a while. Like they could be sandbagging lands so they can get out of it at some point, but like their whole end game plan is to decree for more than 3/1/1.
Well, okay, this is basically how I feel. You don't need to cast Armageddon. Like obviously Armageddon's good because it's like, oh, they've got these like factor fictions and impulses that all of a sudden become awkward to cast. But like all that matters against Landstill is having Meddling Mage naming Swords of Plowshares. Like your entire game, just like your entire game is just like Meddling Mage naming Swords of Plowshares, and then you play the rest of the game like. Landstill is a deck that only has cards that cost 4 mana with the exception of Swords of Plowshares. Like, so
that's not true.
Mage Sword
Standstill costs 2.
I mean, Standstill is
Impulse.
definitely good. Counterspell is never going to trade favorably, and then Impulse is just like, Impulse is not a card that affects the battlefield, right? So, like the things that Grotog cares about is just Swords to Plowshares, and Wrath of God. But the problem is Grotog's entire like proactive plan is based around Quirion Dryad and Psychotog. You only have 6 copies. So the Landstill player is trying to navigate on how to suppress your 6 threats. And then the Grotog player needs to have Meddling Mage on Swords of Plowshares, which, is great if you get a turn 2 with Days Back. Anyways, I don't know. Armageddon.
Can Grotog play the Brain Freeze the way that 12/12 can?
Yeah.
Just choose not to.
Well, it's less likely to produce heavy stacks, because you can still cantrip double Brain Freeze.
Smaller concentration of cantrips.
Yeah. Well, no, not a smaller concentration, a higher concentration. So Grotog runs 12 cantrips. Dreadnought runs up to 12, but some of those are impulses. And Fran's latest list has 8. Has 4 Portent, 2 Op, 2 Impulse. So Grotog, one of the things the reason why I'm not playing Land Destruction is because I want to play all 12 cantrips, because all you want to do is like draw Mox Diamond or Gush. And like you got a portent for your second island a lot. You got a portent for your source to be able to start casting your off-color spells. And so I don't know. I go back and forth, but right now, Winter Orb Armageddon, I'm not feeling it. They feel too situational. Counterspell is never situational. That's what I'm running instead. Hidden Gibbons feels a little bit more flexible. That's what I'm running instead. So these are all cards that I like. Robin Lund really didn't like Armageddon when he was taking the deck for a spin. I mean, I had a classic Michael J moment where my emotions took over. I just lost a pickup game to Landstill where I drew Armageddon. I was just like, okay, well, I didn't even beat Landstill when I drew Armageddon, so screw this. Because you have to cast it with counter backup because they never tap out. So,
That's just like when I never wanted to play Fran's 12/12 deck because I couldn't foil with the Flooded Strand.
Yeah. There's some one bad thing happened. You're like off it.
Never again.
Yeah, and then like I said, keep your eyes peeled. Fran has made Fran Dynamo. Oh, Fran Dynamo. Ooh, Fran Dynamo.
Fran Dynamo?
Fran Dynamo plus Covetous Dragon deck. We put it through the ringer. He lost to Blue White Dreadnought. He lost 1 game to Elves, but then won the other 2. Oh, this is Wildfire deck, by the way. So this is just Kai Fires. He lost to Goblins, but he mulled 4 in game 3. But he lost game 1 to Goblins. He lost to Replenish, and then he lost to the Rock. So 1-4 technically. 1-4 technically.
Why would anyone want to play this deck? I was like super excited with like the first 2 sentences,
and then he just started losing.
Lost.
Okay, so the reason why I bring this up is actually because with the recent string of middling results in the league, Fran and I have failed to qualify for the upper echelon of online pre-modern competition for like 6 weeks. We haven't played in a single playoff because we haven't been putting up numbers. And Fran's like, I need to make more content, and I used to have 5 rounds plus playoffs to make content around, but I haven't made the playoffs, and I want to like play these bad decks. So like let's do a video where we play some bad decks. So
what if he's just like a return to normalcy and he just plays like, let's call it
Blue White
Kaplan.
Yeah, Kaplan not.
Yeah, like 2 sorts of play. I'm guessing Fran would never lose a game.
I mean, he's doing it
to watch that.
He's doing it for the channel, He's made like 7 Dreadnought videos, so he's just like, oh, not another Dreadnought.
But none in months. There hasn't been one since LobsterCon.
That's true. I mean, let me tell you, I haven't played games of Dreadnought except for when I play it to be the enemy in testing. I always win. I'm just like, this deck is so good.
That's why I'm just like, you're crazy that you don't put it in number 1.
Well, because we don't test, like when we do testing Gauntlet, we always need data on how like rando decks play into Dreadnought. I'm like, okay, well, Dreadnought always beats rando decks, but if people show up to ball, like if people show up to game, you're going to beat Kaplan in the quarters. That's what happened 2 times over.
Yeah, Kaplan's lost in the quarters. He lost to the Rock and he lost to Metelsky.
Yeah.
But losing to the Rock, come on. I mean, I guess in your mind, a lot of decks can line up well against Dreadnought in an elimination match. Right?
In my mind, I would say
it's really just red deck that's bad against them. Other decks are,
I don't know,
largely good against them.
This is something that I haven't like distilled to an absolute science, but like you're like, okay, well, why don't you put Burn in tier 1? I'm like, Burn doesn't feel like a deck that is going to X1 the Swiss. Like, and Blue-White Dreadnought does feel like a deck that's going to X1 the Swiss. And the reason why is because if you're playing LobsterCon, like, I mean, I don't know. I kind of want it to be a theoretical tournament. I want it to be like a LobsterCon, but like, okay, so recently the Eternal Weekend Legacy Champs capped at 950 players, right? So let's assume that maybe you'll still get your first 2 rounds will be against people playing, Naya, Knight of the Reliquary. By the time you get to round 3, all your opponents are playing Grixis Delver or, whatever tier 1 decks. So if I think about a metagame in pre-modern where that's the same thing, where it's like you roll up with your deck and you're playing Burn, it's just like, okay, well, Burn, you could get paired against Blue-White Dreadnought 3 times, right? Or you could get paired against, Elves 3 times just as likely, right? If we're taking our tier list at face value. But yeah, I don't know. If you play 9 matches, 3 against Elves, 3 against Goblins, 3 against Dreadnought, I just like don't think you're gonna X1. Whereas like Dreadnought, I feel like you'll X1 that inverse, because you'll probably push. I don't know. I'm just like talking.
I mean, I'm just looking at one player, right? Shane Coda has 3 tops in TC decks. Second at a John Con Philadelphia pre-modern event. 6 out of 89, so top 8 out of 89, pretty decent size showing.
Wait, Shane played in Philly? When was this?
7 out of 30. So he was 7th at Sacred Torch, and then I could tell you Shane top forward Bearded, which just isn't on TC decks, right?
Yeah.
He played the same deck. I would not be surprised if he played the same 75 in all 4 events.
No, I think he took out Goblin Patrol.
Oh, is there Goblin Patrol? Oh, he had Sandstalker in one of these decks. Yeah, this deck and Flunkies. Yeah, I think he got better.
No, I mean, I think and I think that Chris's, Chris Ironlungs, his results are nothing to sneeze at either. But I also think that like nobody plays Elves all the time, and that's, I don't know why. Like, if there was a guy who just played Elves like Dave Kaplan plays Blue-White Dreadnought, like, I mean, they would just be winning. Ole hasn't been playing. Pablo only plays, abroad. Like, there's just like,
no, but when Ole play, I mean,
it's a
Ole
vibe.
It's
a vibe,
results.
Mike. I'm just trying to tell you that's my vibe. I'm just like, if you were like a hardcore, you only grinded, you're like a Goblin grinder, a Blue-White Dreadnought grinder, an Oathpauloosh grinder, or an Elves grinder. Like, I think those, like, if you played those 4 decks at a high proficiency level, your expected return on meaningful tournament play would be like dramatically higher than the next tier. That's just what I think. Like, I think you can mainline Burn, and like things have changed. There's no parfait, but like, I think if you mainline Burn, you're still gonna run into enough Dreadnought and enough Welves with 17 Well-Wishers or Natural Order and Neshoba or whatever to scare you away. That's all. That's just what I think.
Hold me back from top 4ing every day.
Exactly. Like, what do you want to do? You want to win the tournament, or do you want to lose to Timely Reinforcements guy? Like, that's just how I feel.
I never want. I don't think Timely Reinforcements guy should be allowed to play. Okay, let's look at the top 1 and 2 tier decks though, right? Like, you got Burn against Goblins, Burn slight favorite, right?
Yeah.
Burn against Elves, Burn heavy favorite. Burn against Oath.
Heavy favored, ignoring tech, because when I was testing with Ole, the tempting worms just did it. They just worked.
I wonder where Ole got that from.
Come on, Mike. You get 3 plugs. You can't plug something like 10 times.
I don't wonder. I mean, Burn versus Oathpauloosh, Burn heavy favorite, right? Burn versus 12-12, Burn not favored. Okay, but that's like most of tier. What else is in tier 1? Elves, Goblins.
Yeah, that's my tier 1, and then the next tier starts with Replenish, and then the
Replenish.
Color
like, if Michael J is playing against Burn, then Replenish heavy favorite. If anybody else is playing against Burn, Burn medium favorite, right?
Well,
like, Replenish has no defense against Burn's tier 1.
It's Michael J or Lanny. The defense is just Parallax tied.
No, I mean, I would just go for my squeak combo.
Yeah, I know.
You don't have that. Nobody plays that anymore. Like, you're just not going to scare off Burn with Parallax Tide and Seal of Cleansing.
Well,
it's not going to happen.
No, I mean, Tide does it. We tested this. I won every time.
No, you changed your deck completely. I don't know, man. I'm just talking about like all these other Yahoos playing their regular.
I'm not making a tier list for Yahoos. I'm making a tier list for killers.
All
if
right,
you're
well,
a killer, you don't play Burn. Okay, that's all I'm saying. If you're a killer, you play a killer deck.
I feel like it is. I feel like it is better than just not embarrassing. I feel like it's tier 1. I mean, what do you think its realistic tier is then? Tier 2?
Yeah, that's where I have it.
Yeah, I think
I
think
have it like
top,
right below the rock or whatever.
Top 2. Listeners can't hear me vomit, but I just did. I mean, I feel like the below the rock. What is the rock? Lanny rock?
The rock,
deck
the
with,
rock, and
blue white deck with
blue,
Dust Bowl and
yeah, and blue white the rock. Yeah, those are the rocks. That's the rock.
Like I mean, there's all kinds of decks that I think like you have to categorize, like Enchantress, Devourer.
Devourer's. I don't know why Devourer is not there, but it just isn't. I mean,
I feel like Devourer is a real deck.
It catches strays.
It lines up. Really
I play more Devourer than anyone. Okay,
and it lines up really well.
I am qualified to comment on this. Devourer is catching strays, thanks to stupid Curse Totem. So catching strays versus Curse Totem, not good. 2, deck has medium power level. One of the big problems.
I mean, Engineered Plague is also decent.
Yeah. Engineered Plague is a huge stray. The deck has medium power level. It doesn't play particularly well against counterspells. It can beat the counterspell, like devoted counterspell decks, like it can beat Landstill, but it does not do great against the tempo counterspell decks. And then
the Delver decks, let's call them.
Yeah, sure. And then the deck is just a little bit clunky. So I love the deck because it's a 5-mana spell combo, so it doesn't use the graveyard, it doesn't use the battlefield.
Wins 2 different ways.
Yeah, it has Fling Altar. You can normally like set up some like good stuff. It has good artifact synergy in it, but it's just a little bit clunky. It just doesn't quite play like good combo deck. I'm still tinkering with it. I played Burning Wish. I of course went up to 4 Intuition so that I could go for the Intuition Deep Analysis setup. I got the deck about as consistent as I could get it. I picked up like a 4-1 finish recently, but then I just like I don't know. I like lost against something random when I sleeved up for a playoff. And it's just it also it doesn't belong on. I mean, if it was in the tier list, it would just be in the needs more data section.
All right, so there's just what else is Burn good or bad against? Dead Guy Ale. I feel like it's a
Dead Guy Ale is copium tier. So
people play it, right?
Yeah, it is the second most popular, the first or second most popular deck at Eternal Week in Europe. But I don't think that you're going to play against very many Dead Guy Ale opponents in the 7th round of a Swiss tournament. And if you do, that opponent might
in the 2 and 5 bracket.
Yeah, that. But also your Dead Guy Ale opponent can just go turn 2 Warmth, turn 3 Copperhead. And then turn 10 Deathgrasp. You're like, okay, I can beat Warmth Copperhead. I'm just going to do the same thing.
Warmth Copperhead seems awful.
Yeah.
I don't know how you plan to beat it.
I actually had 6 creatures in play. So Copperhead was like suppressing my like 3 Jackal Pups and Mogs and whatever and Grims and whatever. But they couldn't stick a creature, right? So I would just go like double bolt your Angel, and they only wedged in with Death Grasp. Like that's when they closed out. But I actually was at parity for a long time, and that's actually where Winter Orb would have been sick. Obviously, Flaring Pain, all this stuff does the same thing. But my point is, you might get randomed by a deck that sucks. And like, I don't know, that sucks too. It's just like, you might lose to the Rock. It's just like, Do
listeners not like it when we say that Dead Guy Ale sucks?
I mean, Dead Guy Ale fans don't like it, but I think they're like, we're starting to like get through to them. Like it used to be like, hey guys, check out my Dead Guy Ale deck. And then now it's just like, hey guys, I know Dead Guy Ale is a really bad strategy, but what do you think about my Dead Guy Ale deck? So we're making progress, Fran. You hear me? They're cutting the dark rituals. Or they're just playing freaking sweet dark ritual, Scion of Darkness, Dark Supplicant.
See, I think that might be a real strategy. I mean, I just watching it and I'm like, this is like this is like a lot of the juice that zombies is,
Yeah.
made zombies viable.
Yeah.
But then they just have a route,
Ritual, Priest of Gix, Rotlung Reanimator, Dark
Yeah, Priest of
Supplicant,
Gix seems
sacrifice
terrible.
it, unearth my Priest of Gix, get 3 more mana, play another Rotlung, sacrifice things, get 6 zombie like, inject it straight into my veins. I don't know. People need to play more zombies. I think I unfairly have zombies rolled into mono black as being a bad deck, and the main reason
different decks.
Main reason is just that zombies is just kind of like bad against Oath of Druids. I mean, it's not.
Can we just bad moon after sideboarding? I mean, do people just not play like Dystopia?
I don't think Dystopia is that good, because one of the things that the Oath of Druids deck can do is play like 1 or 2 copies of Ray of Revelation post board and then just turn it over when they oath out their Exalted Angel.
Okay, but what if you don't hit that, right? Like maybe the Dystopia can either suppress the opponent strategy,
it can,
or
but
like get 2 or 3 permanents.
But it can, but the way you get to sacrifice the oath and you still get the creature for free, so you're kind of like on top there. And then if you get the Ray for free,
Dystopia kills the creature.
No, the Dystopia kills the oath,
and then it kills the creature.
Right, but like I said, that you have time to. I'm
just saying to you, man.
You can also just like animate a treetop village and then sacrifice
the first
it.
PTQ I ever won, I had Dystopia and play a lot that day.
I know. I've never lost to Dystopia with my decks featuring green and white permanents. So
yeah, you ever played against, I hate to say, a competent player with the Dystopia, but
I mean,
you hit him high, hit him low, brother.
Needs more data. I
respect needs more data. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying
Dystopia is a thing.
I'm not saying don't cast Dystopia in your zombies deck. I'm just saying that it might not be as powerful as you want it to be.
So I feel like a lot of the time you just need to disenchant 1 key enchantment, whether that be a Light of Day or I had a Light of Day in my red-white deck sideboard after PSS last year because Aaron beat me so bad.
So you also get randomed by Elephant Grass, which is like the most hilarious thing. Dystopia does not work against Elephant Grass. That deck is all green and white permanents.
Why?
That draw cards.
I mean, but you can edict some of their permanents.
I mean, it's just going to eat giant growths and explorations or elephant grasses that just get replaced by other elephant grasses.
Yeah, well, you're never beating that deck.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I mean, oh my God, elephant grass.
Dude, stray bullets. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, one of the notes I put is just like, oh, like I've got this brew. It's just like, okay, well, does your brew play creatures? It's just like, yes, it does. Like, okay, does it have a plan for Oath? It's just like, okay, well, it's got a plan for Oath. It's like, okay, what's your plan for 12-12? I mean, it's what Aaron posted. He's just like, what's your plan for 12-12? What's your plan for land tax? What's your plan for Lackey? What's your plan for getting bolted in the face 7 times? It's just like, you need a plan for like all of those things. And your coverage needs to be like at least 80%, right? You need to be like covered with a good plan on 80% if you expect to win a tournament.
All right, so let's run this down. Let's say I made my deck choice for LobsterCon 2002. Does my deck play creatures? No. What is my plan for getting bolted in the face 7 times? Making myself immune to damage. What other things are it?
Goblin Lackey.
Goblin Lackey. I would have lost, but I never played against that.
Yeah.
I would have thought that making myself immune to damage was a thing, but I didn't realize it.
Yeah. I don't know. We should add Meddling Mage to the list. What's your plan for Meddling Mage?
The other thing was like, what would be my plan for 12-12? Nobody played it except for Flint, and I lost to him.
Yeah.
But he played it in a non-12-12 shell.
That's fine. I mean, what's your plan for Survival of the Fittest? What's your plan for Hermit Druid? Like,
I think I just want to play Flint's deck from last year. I think that deck's super good and super underplayed.
I agree. It's in my needs more data section. Anyways, those decks are those decks. I don't know. Pre-modern is still great. Like we had a great time playing decks that aren't tier 1. But the room.
Why are you keep saying this? Burn is good.
The room was 2 burn, 2 mono brown.
That was unbelievable.
Decks.
I guess Cam was just sick of always finishing in the top.
Yeah. 1 elves, 1 goblins, 1 land still, 1 Grotog, and that was the 9 of us.
So it was like you at 12 points, me at 9 points, and then there was a gross distribution. Very clearly 12, very clearly 9, and then like 7 and lower was everybody else.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and then and Sylvain brought the rock, so caught the draw against Mono Brown. So good meetup. We still play decks that aren't tier 1. We still lose playing tier 1 decks because we are bad at not playing beatdown. I mean, I don't know. Oathpauloosh is just like a non-linear deck. I thought it'd be a linear deck. I'd just be like, okay, like you just cast Oath or cast Cataclysm or cast Zero Resistance and you like ride it to victory. And that happens a lot of the time. It happens so much of the time that I won my first 4 matches with it, and then lost to like whatever, like that Double Dark Ritual situation. I was like, oh, this deck's pretty good. It feels like parfait. You just like play your one high leverage thing. But then my second 5 matches, I got put in a bunch of uncomfortable situations where I actually had to figure out how to like get my Oath to trigger, or like I had Kurtar's Desire and it kind of sucked. And we never talked about Mirror Tech. The Mirror Tech is now Wax Wane because Wax means you win the Terravor fight, and then Wayne means
or my angel
Oath.
beats your angel.
Exactly, and then Wayne.
That's great.
Yep.
I would say I actually didn't realize that was I was watching Fran video when like 2 angels were hitting each other. I'm like, you know what would have been great here?
Giant Growth Wax Wayne.
That's a main deck card, not a sideboard card, though, right?
No, you can play it sideboard. I mean,
it's just a better main deck card.
I would rather have Ray of Revelation. Like Ray of Revelation is so like I played.
Ray of Revelation is just card advantage, and people see it coming. Wax Wayne, they don't see it coming.
I mean, don't sleep on Ray of Revelation. Ray of Revelation,
the highest leverage card in the mirror or quasi mirror is Terravor, right?
It's Ray of Revelation. Ray of Revelation is the best.
Ray of Revelation doesn't beat a Terravor. It just beats how a Terravor comes out, right? So if a Terravor is in play, it's like plow or fight, right? But Wax Wayne counters one of those 2 things.
Well, okay, so
agree.
ultimately
changes how many available Terravors are there,
agree,
and also
but
you can Wayne a Kurtar's.
Yeah, but your Wax Wayne. I mean, you probably don't play Kurtar's in the Wax Wayne finisher. But one of the things is that Terravor is like fine, but you like Terravor is bad into Oath. And the reason why Terravor is bad into Oath and still good overall is because the presence of Ray of Revelation makes Oath and Library really, really suspect, basically. So in the mirror, if you are the player that draws Ray of Revelation, you're going to be in a really good spot, like more so than anything. Because if you can catch a Sylvan Library and then always have Ray of Revelation to ensure that they can't Oath you, then, like, I don't know, it's just super sick. And then obviously if you ever trigger Oath and get Rays for free, it's super sick. Like all your grind comes from Ray of Revelation and then like weird advantage, like, and Sylvan Library. Like if you can somehow stick a Sylvan Library and get it to trigger once, you'll be in a great spot. Like I played against Fran. I was just like, oh my God, like we're playing the same cards and stupid Fran has like 2 more cards in hand and 3 more lands in play. Like, how did it come to this? I'm just like, I'm so bad at grinding. I just play my creatures and hope for the best. Like Fran's out there. He's just like, I'm going to do this. And then Lanny's going to do this. And then his Kurtar's Desire is going to blow up. And
how did you do with Rich D. Hoth?
I didn't play 5 matches of League play. I'll probably play that next, but I play against Dreadnought and abeyance the hell out of them, and then I played against like other random stuff, and I didn't get good data on it. I enjoyed Scroll Rack and Sylvan Library. Like my one criticism was just like the card advantage in this deck is like so embarrassing, and you were just like, no, you have plenty of cards in hand. So I enjoyed the deck more than I thought I would, and I think I definitely want to see if there's something that we can do that's like reasonable. And the Zer's Reading Revelation was like super interesting. It's just like, yeah, you just don't like. I would probably cut the Words of Worship. I'm considering cutting Abundance because it just kind of feels like the ceiling. Like I just like don't want to like. I'm learning through these games of pre-modern that you only need to win by 1 card. So just like, play.
Yeah, but
like,
the thing is you're giving up so many cards by just creating a deck that's based on position, right? Like the card Scroll Rack is a negative card until you start netting cards with it.
Yeah, well,
right? So you're down a card now.
That's the problem. But that's the problem I have with the deck. I mean, that's the problem with I have with all these.
Sylvan Library is the same thing. It just it has a faster recoup.
I agree. I'm telling you that in a deck with a stack of these effects, like trying to lace together Sylvan Library, Abundance via Enlightened Tutor is just like a recipe to get owned by Ray of Revelation. Like I want to I don't know. Ray of Revelation scares the shit out of me. It's just a super good card. Maybe my problem is I should just be playing Grotog more because it doesn't lose. Like, okay, so my arc in pre-modern for the last week is just like, oh man, I don't want to play a deck that loses to Oath. I don't want to play a deck that loses to Oath, so I have to play Oath. But now my deck loses to Ray of Revelation. So now I want to play the deck that loses to Oath but doesn't lose to Ray of Revelation.
White Weenie with Ray of Revelation and Wax Wayne.
Yes. In.
Check it.
Checkmate. I mean, I put 2 Ray of Revelations in my sideboard of Grotog because I was just like, if I have 2 Ray of Revelations and I always draw it, I'm like never going to lose to this. Like, one of the things that scared me off Grotog was I love my Grotog matchup versus everything. I beat Goblins in the meetup. I found a way to beat Burn somehow, getting lucky, plot armor. Initially I was just like so upset because I'm like, man, if I ever trigger my opponent's Oath of Druids and they put out a giant Terravore, my deck really isn't built well to fight against this. But I just realized, I'm like, but I could just draw Ray of Revelation ever in my 12 cantrip 4 Gush deck, and then, you know, or just like ice their Terravore, you know, or and like I can always run out a Meddling Mage naming Oath, and then they always kill it first, and then Oath comes into play, and then I get to Ray of Revelation. So now I'm back on the Grotog train. Grotog with 3 Ray of Revelation sideboard.
You were never really off of Grotog, especially after winning the PSS.
No, I was off it immediately after winning the PSS.
But you were never emotionally off of it.
Yeah, just same as you were never emotionally off Burn.
But I made no bones about that.
I mean, regardless, yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. A lot of half-baked thoughts going into the pod this week. I'm kind of just like marinating on my experiences in the past, like whatever, trying to reevaluate all this data coming in, all these like blue, white weenie, mono black, getting more reps with Oathpauloosh, like goblins never beat, or elves never beating goblins except for sometimes, like Mengu's elves decks. It's like crazy. It's just like everything. There's still so much to learn.
Still super dynamic, right?
Yeah.
That's so cool. All right, here's the thing. I think we should start submitting like meetup results
to TC
decks. Yeah,
we have
like,
to collect lists. Yeah,
it's annoying to me that like we just never have any results go up and we play more than everybody else. That is actually annoying to me.
Yeah, well,
like, we had 3 meetups this month.
Well, and
I finished like whatever first, top 4, second, right?
The homies.
I have no tops on TC decks.
Granted, most scenes tend not to register their meetups into TC decks for the same reason that we don't, which is just that.
But our average meetup is bigger than the average tournament.
Yeah, it tends to be for sure. Right, but it's just because collecting deck lists is a pain in the ass, and it's just like easier for content creators like yourself to just post on Twitter, and then that just gets the discussion going anyways. Like, it's nice. Obviously, TC decks is valuable because everyone, like a lot of people who don't directly engage with content, like that's like the first place they'll go. I mean, that's how people are with all Magic. There's like first place they go is deck lists, and then they look elsewhere.
Like, I didn't know that there was an Eternal Weekend Europe pre-modern main event like a week ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's because you're. I mean, we talked about it because I mentioned the Iggy Pop.
137 players.
Yeah, we talked about the Iggy Pop combo. I mentioned that Black Red Goblins won, which with Sparksmith.
What came in second?
Mono Black.
No, that came in third.
Oh yeah. The second player didn't submit their deck list, so it's lost to all eternity.
Are you kidding?
We've been trying to chase him down, trying to find out what the deal is.
So let's just look. This is the best Goblin deck right now, and he's got a Sparksmith.
Yeah, he's
First
also
card
got
in the list.
Draunu's Crusade in the sideboard. Draunu's Crusade notably turning off Circle of Protection Red. Did you ever think about that?
I did. This deck is bangers. 2 Cabal Therapy, Pyrokinesis, Perish. Take that, Mengu. Mengu's not walking away from Pyrokinesis, Perish, and there's got to be sharp. 3 main deck sharpshooters. This cat was coming for Mengucci.
School of BK.
3 main deck sharpshooters, 3 incinerators, Pyrokinesis, Perish. Yikes. 4 Tormod script. He came for you also, Lanny.
That's true.
I mean, how many? One swamp, one wasteland, 4 bloodstained mire.
It's just
4
the
port.
green red mana base flipped to black red.
It's just 2 therapy instead of 2 naturalized. I cannot get behind 2 siege gang commander, but maybe you make up with it with 3 sharpshooter.
I mean,
Because this is just like the same deck, except for it's
it's just trying to serve up. I mean, it's just leaning harder into sharpshooter, but you need siege gang to complement the sharpshooter because the combo is prospector, siege gang, sharpshooter. I was talking to BK and I was like, we should just play Goblin Sledder. Pit Rack's in here. The mono green oath is in here.
4 Tormod's Crypt seems dumb to me. I hate that card.
Blue White Siphonot leaned really heavily into Swords of Plowshares. I think in Italian there was also a heavy
4
Enlightened Tutor
and Boomerang.
Yeah, we're just
this guy has a lot of respect for whatever the hell the opponent's doing. I can tell you that.
He's playing Gear 2.
Circle Red.
I mean, that's silly.
Gear 2, 12/12.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. You should just be a Brain Freeze deck after sideboarding most of the time. Anyways, we're getting...
This is just a regular elf deck. All right, let's just talk about maybe let's talk about tournament finals next week. I guess I didn't feel like we were all over the first part is just me talking about how much I love
No, I mean, I wanted to...
our real results.
I'm not... I mean, we're always all over the place. I guess my main thing is, like, I wanted to... have some more revelation through this discussion, and I'm feeling more unsure about a lot of stuff, even though I played a lot of Magic this week. Like, we learned Sulfuric Vortex is good. We learned that Grotog can beat Burn twice even. And
a Goblins deck.
And Goblins, although I just... The battlefield was... they played Siege Gang a couple times. I plowed the Siege Gang on site, so they never got the activation. So the battlefield was like Meddling Mage Psychotog versus 1/1 Goblin tokens, and then I drew Engineered Plague. So that should give you a relative idea of how I think, this
Drowning's Crusade is a pretty good foil to Engineered Plague, right?
Yes. But I might be... well, I've got 4 copies and 12 cantrips, so I'll probably get 2.
Well, they're 3 King and 2 Drowning's Crusade.
Yeah, but I get to plow the kings. I can plow or fire the kings. Like, I'm still a 4 plow, 4 fire ice, 4 engineered plague deck. It's just not going to be easy for goblins. But I just play control.
They can't get any of these singletons, right? There's 1 gloom, 1 perish. You just have to draw them naturally. This isn't a cantrip deck. This actually kind of seems weird to me.
I mean, I don't want to dive into this black red goblins deck without us getting our hands on it first.
No. I agree, because this deck seems very exciting to me, but it's just some of the stuff I just haven't wrapped my head around yet.
I mean, I want to... anyways, we learned about Grotog. No new data on Enchantress, a deck I wanted to watch out for. No new data on Blue White Weenie. White Weenie made an incredible run. It won Italian Nationals.
Beating 12-12 in the finals, right?
Yeah, but 12-12... I mean, they got to get 12-12 in the semis and the finals, and it's just like such a sick matchup. It's
let's save that. So next week, let's just do tournament results, and I'll watch all the tape, and we can have an intelligent discussion about.
Yeah, I mean, we can play some of these decks. We can play some of these. We can play the White Weenie deck. We can play the Goblins deck if we have time. Let's make Rebel and Roman play like the White Weenie. Oh yeah, maybe we'll take a break next week if we're hanging out in person. Either that, or we're gonna record a 4-person episode of Ancestral Recall.
So what happened was we were all supposed to play the PTQ, and all of us forgot to register, and it sold out.
I didn't forget to register. That's the best outcome for me. Like, so
hanging out instead of.
Well, my thought was like, if we can day of this thing without pre-reg, then that's great for me. Because 1, I never know if my Saturday plans fall through, based on social stuff, and then 2, like, I don't know. I don't like Modern is not my first choice of things to be playing. I wouldn't need to have borrowed a deck, blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, okay, if this doesn't fire for us, then it's great for me because I only own cards for pre-modern decks, and I rather, not spend money and not scrub out and not deal with a hungry, salty Michael J after he scrubs out. So
I can't see my wrinkled face. It's wrinkled AF right now. Oh my God. You know how sick I am today? I ate an entire package of Trader Joe's Swiggly noodles. That's 4 packages of squiggly
You need to eat
noodles.
some vegetables too. Might I suggest?
This week, one night, I just had vegetables for dinner.
Okay.
I had cream spinach, Brussels sprouts, shishito peppers, dal, and Greek giant beans. Because there's this place called Wonder near me that you could order from like a bunch of different restaurants. So I just ordered like 5 sides from 5 restaurants.
Well,
Is that exciting?
Proud of you for that. Not too sick to go 2.5 hours on Spy Colony podcasts.
Yeah, but I'm not playing Legacy right now.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
I could fully be 03 at this point.
Yeah, that's true. That's and plausible.
Yeah.
But love to see it. And I don't know. Do we have any shout outs this week?
Shout out to Roland. I can't wait to see what Roland ends up doing. All in on Magic. It's like, crazy. Like it. He's been playing for so long, and at like this point he's had like a successful long-term conventional kind of.
Is this public information,
career.
by the way?
Yeah. What do you mean public?
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I talked to him on the phone yesterday, and he's got to have a website, and I don't know. I told him I'd be shouting him out.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it hasn't launched yet, right? But it's gonna launch.
All right, keep your eyes peeled for Roland Chang, one of the few people to have held the Vintage and Legacy World Championship titles at the same time. Of course, the Japanese foil god, amongst other things. If you are playing Pre-Modern at Eternal Weekend, make sure to share your photos and your deck picks and any results in case they take too long to filter through to the sites where we find results. And they're going to play middle school at Eternal Weekend at a bar randomly. So
what New York guys are? I mean, Roland's going, and Kaplan's going.
I mean, I'm sure Detail's going. He loves Eternal Weekend. He like clears his schedule for Eternal Weekend. There's a ton of New York guys going. Like it's going to be like, and then of course Reed Duke is going to go.
What do you think? Like Roland against Kaplan in the finals for? Are there 2 different championships?
In the Legacy Championship is 950 people registered
right now.
Yeah, I'm
949 meet for Kaplan. Just so you know,
I know
Kaplan
that
is going to through 900.
I know that Kaplan is obviously a stone cold killer, but one of the no lifer like Legacy grinders that only plays Legacy is like gonna get this. Like Kaplan has a day job.
Kaplan just won the $2,000 tournament last week.
Yeah,
he's probably gonna win today.
There's 950.
He's the standing Star City champion.
The guy who won Juju Bean won the freaking Legacy champs in Europe, which was like 700 some players. That kid only plays Magic. I suspect that a kid that only plays Magic is going to win Legacy champs. Vintage is of course a lot more open. But I mean, there's some like real killers.
There's a pre-modern championship too, right?
There's like a pre-modern, like you play flights, and then if you win a flight, you play a showdown and you get a Mox Diamond or whatever. So keep your eyes out for that. Hopefully there's enough people playing pre-modern that weekend.
There will be.
But 950 cap for
Legacy. It's actually surprising to me. So there's 950 people willing to fly to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's why I didn't go. I thought it was in Philly. If it was in Philly, I would have.
Yeah, we were just taking the train.
Yeah, I would have gone for pre-modern, and I probably would have, played Legacy or something. There's no shortage of people who would have Midas decks, right? But Philly is a different story than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, Pittsburgh, man. I feel like Roland might get one, and Kaplan will get the other one.
I mean, trust me, I'm rooting for our New York guys. I do think that.
I think Detail was top 8 in Philly a few years ago.
Yeah, he lost his winning in Vintage last year. So watch out. I think our guys are strong. I'm just saying, like, this is the most competitive Legacy event probably
ever.
I mean,
it's got to be. That's bigger than any.
Used to be GPs, right? But it's bigger.
Bigger than any Grand.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well. We're rooting for our New York guys. I mean, I'm not like I'm not gonna call it for Dave or Roland, because I love those guys, but like the people out there, like I don't know, like I mean, it's just it's just, how do you win a tournament? You have to play 13 rounds or something. Like, it's unbelievable how many rounds
funny,
you have to play.
Convo I was having with Roland yesterday, he's like, but before I got to be friends with you, and he's talking to me, I just thought you like hated vintage and legacy players. And I'm like, yeah, I probably said that I did repeatedly. So it makes sense. And I'm like, but I just thought they weren't very good. And he's just like, well, they probably weren't, right? But I'm like, now I know you guys. I'd be like, Kaplan's pretty good. And I didn't realize what a genius Shea is, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's a genius. He's way better at Magic than I am, right? I was like, oh, he won a legacy tournament. Who cares?
Yeah,
right?
he's likely played more Eternal Magic than anyone on Earth. Maybe that's changed now, but up until
I'm just saying, like,
a few years ago.
Yeah. At A, I was probably wrong to begin with, but B, I just didn't have it in my range.
And I do want to be clear, when we do say we play more than anyone else, the only person that we probably don't play more than is Rich Shea, because he plays just every day, every night.
Oh, he's always like, who wants a match?
Yeah, he's always looking. Yeah, so I assume that he's always playing. But yeah, long live pre-modern. Hope you enjoy your time at Eternal Weekend if you're going. And be sure to check out Michael J's tournament report on the Pre-Modern for Non-Idiots Facebook group. My tier list from last week.
Why did you tell them where it is? They had to work a little bit. Now it's just like, oh, it's a Facebook group.
It's not. It wouldn't have been hard. Because you can't like search bar Twitter and Discord for groups, and also there's just like no groups anywhere. So like, I don't know, process of elimination. Be sure to check that out. I'll probably do some stupid write-ups in the near future. I kind of want to just during my unemployed time.
Should we just change Non-Idiots to like Spike Colony pre-modern discussion or something?
Yeah, probably something less incendiary,
less like mean, and then also more useful to our listeners.
Yeah, that might be good.
Oh man, if only I knew the admin of that group and he could change the name.
Well, be sure to write a request. Until then, thank you for listening. We love you a lot. Keep posting those deck picks, and good luck at Eternal Weekend and the middle school.
Specifically to our friends. If you're not one of our friends,
bad luck.
Bad, horrible luck.
All right.
I hope that if you see a 4-leaf clover, you accidentally step on it.
Love Spike Colony.
Love.
Game over.